I see Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer?
It's from the ceremony when Al Pacino stumbled on stage.
Oh, God.
After his 7-hour nap behind the stage, and then he came out, was like, it's the awards. It's the awards, I guess. And then he was like reading off the envelope.
He said
very lackadaisically.
Very unpassionate about being there.
Well, to be fair, he does have a newborn at home keeping him up.
True, you're right. Yeah, like he doesn't have enough money to pay off people to help out with that.
I just love that that's like one of the most notable parts of the Oscars is the fact that Al Pacino just very unceremoniously announced the winner of Best Picture.
Even they were confused that they won.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I feel like most people saw that Oppenheimer was going to win, and then the way he read it, it made people double guess. Like, is this another La La Land thing? Like, what's going on here?
I saw on Twitter, so I know we talked about it, because I said that normally they read off the nominees, and I know you said that they had already, they show the Best Picture previews during the whole thing.
Yeah,
they're
showing it throughout the ceremony.
Yeah, and I think he said that since they had already shown it, he decided not to read off the nominees.
I think he said the execs told him he didn't have to.
Oh, is that what it was?
I think so.
Okay.
What really trips me up though is even if that's the case, there's a certain kind of beat that people hit when they go, and the winner is,
yep.
And then, kind of let it draw out a bit. And then you announce the winner, hit them with the 1-2 punch. Not necessarily going, I need my reading glasses, but I think it says Oppenheimer, something or another.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Maybe if I squint my eyes, it says Maestro. We'll see.
He must have had the same view on Oppenheimer that Sam did.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they're one and the same. I don't know. Welcome to the 67th episode of the Neon Crew podcast. Ooh. My name is Kyle.
And I'm McLean.
What were you going to ask just now?
No, 67 was my freshman year number in football.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
The milkman.
Yep.
Mackie Parker.
Wasn't quite the milkman yet.
Sometimes I just go back to that video because I find it really endearing, specifically the moment that you pop in and you start talking about how you're the milkman, how you're the only white player on the team, and how everybody loves you and calls you the milkman, and it doesn't matter what skin color you are, you're all brothers,
Yeah, I had,
which is
thank God I was good at sports.
It's very endearing, and I find it very, very cute.
There was a good commonality amongst me and my fellow classmates, and that was we all like sports and we were all pretty good at sports. And I think at Muskegon, for me to fit in at least, I had to be at least decent at sports.
Mm-hmm.
And then freshman year, I think in football I played like 8 positions or something like that.
Dang.
So
the milkman was delivering.
No, not a. You could say that. Maybe not effectively, but
hey, I'm saying it because I think it fits well with your nickname.
Yeah.
So the Oscars obviously happened. We're kind of talking about it. We're touching on it. It was a ceremony. I went over to Mac's apartment. We kind of, did the second year of the tradition of me going over to his place and bringing food and watching the Oscar ceremony play out live.
Yeah.
Jimmy Kimmel doing his thing. What do we think about the ceremony as a whole and how it went? Because personally, to me, it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
There was like a few weird moments and like kind of notable parts that took place, but for the most part, it's like, okay, it's pretty straightforward Oscar ceremony.
Dude, you've got everyone at the pinnacle of their game, all trying to vie for attention. You're gonna have some weird moments. I think every Oscar has a weird moment.
At least one.
Yeah, where it's just we're gonna try to do something that we deem creative.
And sometimes weird isn't the appropriate word for it.
Not if you're Will Smith.
Yeah, sometimes it's physically assaulting someone.
Yeah, like it's
on
just,
live television.
But in terms of like, I always like these things when there's a couple memorable moments. Obviously you get the winners and there's nothing that's really cringe worthy. I think the most cringe that I had was Pacino.
Yeah, right. And that's usually because like sometimes the cringe comes from the jokes, specifically from either Jimmy Kimmel or like people trying to present on stage and they're trying to be funny.
Yeah.
Whereas this year I feel like it was pretty light on that for the most part.
Yeah, I like it when they kind of ease up a little bit. Like we all know all of you guys are very talented.
When they
and
actually
funny.
give the awards out.
Well, I mean, you got to remember. I mean, I don't know how many people watch it, but the demographic is from 13 to 80. So like the jokes can't be too raunchy. They can't be too targeting like one aspect. All that stuff. So those jokes sometimes they try to go so bland or vanilla. It totally misses.
Yeah, it's like you try to aim for everybody, you're gonna hit no one.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought Kimmel was funny. I mean, I thought he kept it rolling pretty well. And normally, I think that a good host in that thing is one that doesn't have too much of the spotlight shine on him. Mm-hmm.
Some notable moments: Ryan Gosling singing "I'm Just Ken,"
Yep,
and then immediately losing original song to Billie Eilish, which I was not expecting.
No, yeah, I don't think anyone in the that we were watching it with was expecting Eilish to win.
I mean, "I'm Just Ken" is such a cultural embodiment of Barbie itself that I'm just surprised that didn't. I thought that was a shoo-in for sure.
Same.
I thought Lily Gladstone had it in the bag for Killers for Best Actress.
God, I know. I can't believe yeah.
Not that Emma Stone didn't deserve it, in my opinion. I think it was a deserved win, but I definitely thought Gladstone had it in the bag.
Who else? I mean, I think we'd seen 4 out of the 5 films. I hadn't seen Nyad.
Nyad was not one of them.
Yeah. Nyad, she was up for Best. Oh, are you saying for Best Picture? I didn't see Nyad, but I want to say 4 out of the 5. Like I had a pretty good. All right, I've seen them on screen
for Best Actress.
Yeah.
So there was Annette Bening for Nyad, Lily Gladstone, Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of the Fall.
She was my second. I really liked her.
Emma Stone, and then Carey Mulligan for Maestro. Which,
Ass.
well, honestly, if you're going to give Maestro anything, Carey Mulligan was good in that movie. It's a lot of her just reacting to Leonard Bernstein's bullshit.
Yeah.
So really can't fault her for that.
No, but I mean, it doesn't mean that I gotta choose her.
True, exactly. You're not wrong.
She was good in it. I don't fault her for being nominated, but like when it came to actually giving a performance,
when you stack them up against those other 4, it's like it's like a little tiny potato chip versus like a giant cornfield.
I mean, I was watching.
I don't know what that analogy was, but
it's all right. You tried for something, and I don't know if it landed or not.
It did not. I can tell you right now, but that's okay. We don't have to acknowledge it anymore.
Yeah, we're moving past it. We won't talk about the.
We're not running on like 4 hours of sleep combined.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have Hüller and Lily Gladstone. Like Lily was my first choice, and then after I watched Anatomy of a Fall, I really liked Sandra Hüller, and I was like, man, she like for a movie that focuses on one singular event and the emotions that spawn from it. I thought she did really well.
The movie asks a lot of her.
Yeah,
and like, she's doing such a dynamic job of portraying that role.
We'll talk about poor things, but I didn't. She would have been my third choice.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, we'll get into it. Yeah, other notable moments: Kimmel doing his thing, Ryan Gosling,
Cena going on stage.
Of course, that was the other thing.
90% naked.
Yeah, we almost saw Cena balls.
Yeah. On
the big screen.
He played D3 football.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, he definitely had a D1 out there. Let me tell you.
Oh.
One dick.
Oh.
Out.
Yeah. I don't know if you could get a D2 or D3.
I'm 0 for 2 so far in this recording. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. Do you think he was actually naked, or do you think he had like a special like sex sock that they wear for intimacy scenes in movies?
You mean Apartments on Saturday night?
Yeah.
No, he had they showed the pictures of him in like behind the stage. And so he had like some granny panties on, some like flesh granny panties on, and then that box. I'm pretty sure the box had the wardrobe, the outfit in it.
Okay.
So like he had a box up there, if I remember right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So like if you looked at it from the side, you could see like, oh, this thing surrounds him basically.
I think how it was like, they cut to the nominees.
Yeah.
You know, and so they're showing. So when they cut to that, I think he just pulled that wardrobe out of the box and threw it on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like I think it was like whatever that curtain that he threw on him was draped in there, and then so when they smash cut to show us all the stuff, he like threw that on. You know, and I think it was all connected around his torso.
Yeah.
So there was kind of a. There was two sides of it on Twitter about people calling out that he had to do that shamelessly.
Some people were saying it was like male body shaming.
Yeah,
or something
part of the
like that.
Illuminati and how you get money.
Which I'm trying to understand if John Cena is in on the joke and he's
That's
the
what I'm
one
saying.
doing it. Like, I feel like if he's okay with it, then
How
is
is
it really body shaming? Like,
But that's what people don't know, so they get on Twitter and voice their opinions.
and plus, it's interesting to call it body shaming when he's literally built like Michelangelo's David times 10.
Yeah.
Like, dude's
I
chiseled.
mean, for being 50 or whatever he is, like, jacked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like I wouldn't be surprised if he agreed to it just so he could show off his awesome body.
Yeah, I was about to say. If anything, I don't know if
big
he was
muscles.
ashamed of going out on stage.
Right.
You know, like I think he was probably like, all right, whatever. He's also he's gotten more into the comedic. Like, he's got his comedic chops going.
Oh, he's been dipping his toes into comedy for years now.
So I think he's.
It shouldn't surprise anybody.
No, I think he was like, man, this would be funny. I'm completely fine with doing this. If I had to guess, I don't think that.
I think so.
I mean, but that's when you get into people who are like, well, the producers and all the big money, you know, the elite of the elite made him do it.
I feel like John Cena's a big enough name to where if he doesn't want to do something, he just won't do it. Like,
yeah, Kimmel doesn't get that joke in there. Because I know that, I mean, I'm assuming that Kimmel has his own writers that draw up a lot of his jokes and stuff and come up with a lot of that stuff on the, hey, this is what you guys will do. And they have to do test runs.
Like, we have an idea for a bit. Let's see how it's going to go.
Yeah. And that's why I'm like, that one to me was one that I'm like, man, that's almost a little too far. But after seeing kind of some of the props and how it was done, I was like, oh, it's funny.
Yeah.
You know?
It'd be one thing if it was like a smaller actress who was like forced into it and was clearly uncomfortable.
Oh my god! Like Emily Blunt going out there in like a bra and her panties or something.
Like, yeah, like they made Florence Pugh do like a Oppenheimer joke where she's naked on stage, and like she clearly doesn't like it. It's like that's one thing, but John Cena's clearly in on the joke.
I was about to say he seemed to have. I feel like there's no cheek with him.
There's no argument there.
No.
So did we have any more thoughts? I know Drew has some thoughts that he sent me. Just now. This just in from my buddy Drew, who might have been on, but
coming in through the wire,
had some other obligations that he had to attend to. So he sent us this message to relay to the public. So he said, not a whole lot of thoughts besides Gosling and Cena. The show went pretty much as planned. Oppenheimer sweep, pretty much. It was cool that Zone of Interest got sound, which I fully agree with.
Same.
I think that was one of my favorite wins of the night.
Yeah.
He also says, I'm super happy for Emma Stone. It puts her on an insane career path with 2 Oscars at her age already. I think she's 35. But it sucks Lily and Killers went 0 and 10. Third time in Scorsese's career. Killian, RDJ, and Nolan long overdue and all deserve the recognition and rewards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I pretty much agree with everything he said.
Yeah, I don't have a...
Especially with the Scorsese stuff.
I'll keep saying it was a weak year in movies. It was a, not weak year, but like a strong supporting cast of movies that just won't clear the zeitgeist.
I feel like it was pretty competitive overall with all the movies that were, most all the movies.
You could
that
have
were
a
up
bunch
there.
of 8s running against each other. You know, like for the year, 8 is going to win it, but if you got a couple 10s from the years before, you can see that there's a drastic difference. I thought they were, I mean, a lot of good films, and we'll talk about them. I mean, the 10 best picture nominees, I we'll see how many really stick with me throughout the years. I mean, that's what I usually gauge it off of. You know, me and my brother were talking about it on Saturday before the Oscars. I mean, we started kind of rattling off years that had really good years and really bad years, you know, and like 2004, 2005, I mean, I think Chicago won it. You had Gangs in New York, and Gangs in New York to me was like above all else on the top 5, you know. And then you got some other years where it's just like Moonlight wins it, right? They beat out La La Land. I mean, that would be another year to me where I'm like, pretty solid films, good year for movies coming out, but at the same token, none of these films are really sticking with me.
The Coda year to me is going to be one of the weaker years in my mind.
What is?
The Coda year?
Yeah.
When Coda won Best Picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that I don't like that movie. I really do like that film. But all the other movies to me were either just okay or mediocre.
That's what that was, what, 2 years ago, right? Last year?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I'm kind of saying. I think this year's better than last year. I do think that. Because, I mean, you had King Richard, you had Drive My Car, you had Belfast. Like,
that was
Belfast
that was
it.
2021. Or, no, 2022. Last year's was Everything Everywhere.
Oh, yes.
Banshees, which I really do like last year's Oscar lineup. And I think that this one is probably not as well liked by me, but I still really enjoy most of the films that are a part of it.
Yeah. I'm not gonna knock. I mean, there's probably there's 5 really strong films in here that I think I'm really happy that I saw.
Well, that's a good segue.
Yeah.
Into our discussion of the 10 Best Picture nominees. So, if you guys listened to our previous episodes covering the Oscars, you'll know that we discuss each of the 10 Best Picture nominees that were included for this year's Oscar ceremony. And the way we do this is we usually touch on each film about 15 to 20 minutes, given the fact that some of these films we've already discussed in full-length episodes. Some of these films we haven't discussed in any official capacity on this show before. So you don't know our thoughts on movies like American Fiction or Anatomy of a Fall or Past Lives. Mm-hmm. But with films like Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, and Barbie, we've already kind of gone in depth with those films. So the discussion around those will be a little more ancillary, having to do with the Oscar ceremony itself, kind of the culture around those films since they've come out, and a little bit more of like sort of the side quest stuff when it comes to those movies.
Sure.
Because, I mean, we've already gone in depth with 4 of these. So
yes, we have.
With that,
one out of there that I can already be like, we could spend 5 minutes on.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
So we're going to discuss each film without spoiling them as much as we can.
Yes.
And then if we do go into spoiler territory, we will let you guys know.
Yeah, we
and
can
then
preface it.
There will be timestamps, at least in the YouTube version, for you to skip to the next discussion.
Perfect. Yeah.
So yeah, without further ado, how this is going to work is Mac and I are going to alternate picking the movies that we're going to discuss. And then I think, what did we do last year? Did we tell each other our rankings for each movie after we got done discussing them?
Yeah. Yes.
And do you want to do it that way again this year?
Yeah. I will probably have to jot down some notes as we're going through some of the synopsises before talking about them.
I can tell you right now, just today I looked at the list that I had made about a month ago.
Yeah.
And I had to switch some things around.
Yeah.
Because my feelings on some of these movies have changed in relation to each other.
Ooh.
But we'll find out.
Yeah.
We'll find out. So I guess the matter of fact, business to take care of is, who wants to go first?
Why don't you want to... Well, so when you say go first, are we just going to pick a movie to talk about?
Yep.
Do you want to go first? I'm gonna start writing some things up here.
Okay.
And that way I can kind of keep chipping away at this as we go through. I wish I would have. I started typing up my thoughts on this stuff, and I got through 2 films, and I was like, nah, I'm just going to go in there and wing it. Mm-hmm. And now I really wish I would have put together a list.
So I'm thinking the first movie I want to talk about is not one we've discussed yet. And I kind of feel I'm gravitating towards 2 of them right now. But one of them that's really sticking out to me is... It's one that I've been thinking about, especially within the past week, given the Oscar buildup. Mm-hmm. Anatomy of a Fall.
Yes. Let's do it.
Been thinking about that one quite a bit, so let's talk about that movie.
Okay.
Do you want me to summarize it, or do you want to do it? Okay.
I think whoever picks out the film gets to summarize it.
All right. Let me just get up some info about this. So Anatomy of a Fall is a 2023 French legal drama. It's directed by Justine Triet and stars Sandra Hüller as, let me get her character name, Sandra Voiter. Oh, Cool. Same first name. As a wife who lives with her husband in, I think it's Germany. Or no, it's France. Because she's German.
Yeah, they're somewhere near the Alps, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
So
But they're
yeah.
under French jurisdiction.
Yes.
Because
they're talking in French, and they go to the parliament to do their.
And she doesn't speak fluent French because she has to keep going back and forth. But it's a legal drama. Has to do with a court case around the fact that her husband fell out of a window, and the court case has to do with whether or not Sandra Voiter pushed her husband out, or if it was merely an accident, or if her husband was suicidal. And we see this unfold through the eyes of not only Sandra, but her lawyer, Vincent, as well as her son, Daniel, who is mostly blind. So that's pretty much the gist of the film.
Yes.
And yeah, let's get into it. So this was one that I don't think I ever found myself losing interest in watching. I was pretty much hooked from the beginning when that scene starts out where she's interviewing one of her students and the loud blaring 50 Cent music is playing upstairs.
Yeah, the clanging of the tin cans.
Just super repetitive and annoying.
Yeah.
And just really intrusive, which is the point of the scene.
Yes.
Felt very intentional, felt very well framed. And I just had this thought of, at the beginning of the film, I'm really going to dig this. I'm going to dig what this film's going for, and I'm going to really like what this film is all about. And I was right. I really did. This is one of the more enjoyable films that I think was nominated for Best Picture. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it as well.
I threw this on. It was I think I had to pay for it. And so that immediately starts out. I think they're talking, and then all of a sudden that music comes on, and I had to pause it, and I'm looking for subtitles, trying to figure out all the stuff to get the movie going. And I'm like, why is it so loud? Like, why is my sound off? Restart the movie. And it's like 4 minutes into it, right? Like, I mean, it happens fairly quickly. Does the same thing. I'm like, I will just let this play through. Whatever they're talking about, I guess I'm going to miss, And then you find out you were supposed to miss it, All the stuff was supposed to be this guy being kind of an asshole about this stuff going on. And, what, with the movie, I mean, it sets up the inciting event, like, right away, And eventually we start going into this court case of... is it possible for this to happen or not? When it actually came to the court case, I found it very weird because I was trying to, obviously they're in France, and it's like, all right, how does this go against how the Americans do?
The movie really makes you think about how the French legal system operates.
Oh, dude, it is I really was like, I hope this is all for cinematic.
I think it is, because I listened to another podcast where one of the hosts' mom is born and raised in France, and she said, yeah, the legal system is nothing like how it's portrayed in this movie.
So much of it was subjective. There was a lot of
There's a lot of very substantial, questionable line of thinking.
Well, and they pose a lot of theories, and
right, which is not usually something that you're supposed to
it's hard
introduce in a legal system, especially in the United States.
That's what I was. So I'm watching it, but I think some of the theoretical nature of what was going on was also used in a cinematic way about what was going on in their lives,
right?
To, theorize what was happening.
It helps
in
you
their
get
day-to-day.
into the mind of the characters and the situation of the narrative. I can look past a lot of the quote unquote inaccuracies of how the legal system of France is portrayed in this film, because a lot of the choices made serve the purpose of us getting to know these characters, us having this situation unfolded to us in a very dynamic and nuanced way that makes it interesting and engaging.
Yeah, 100%.
I can forgive a lot of those, albeit lack of a better word, flaws in the accuracy of that whole thing when this movie is as interestingly written and as compelling as it is.
It's not. And the other thing, this isn't a courtroom drama. I mean, yes, It does stem from that, but it's a deeper look at two people's lives, what's going on in their lives, and how actions could be taking place with what's going on in your life. And that's where there's a lot of theorizing going on and a lot of guessing as to why would this person do that.
Well, because you usually say courtroom drama, and a lot of the time when you watch a movie like that, a lot of the engaging elements come from the scenes where they're in the courtroom and there's like a back and forth between like the lawyer and the witness and the judge and all these things going on. And that's all well and good. And there is some of that in this movie. But to me, a lot of the most engaging stuff was with her argument with her husband that we see much later in the film, kind of like towards the end of the second act, or her interactions with her son, or like her interactions with the lawyer, where a lot of that just tells me this isn't just a courtroom drama. This is just a straight up well-written, well-acted drama.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and I think what they were trying to get across was, it's not whether she did or didn't do it.
I love that the film doesn't answer that question.
I don't think that was what they were doing was putting all of it in front of us to make our guess, our assumption on if she did or didn't do it, which I thought, interestingly enough, was what was going on throughout the film.
Right. The film does its best to make us feel like we're coming to our own decision on this character and whether or not she's guilty of this.
Yeah.
Even if she didn't exactly push him out the window, is she guilty of driving him to this point?
Yeah, which was another fascinating...
That's another facet that the movie it pushes forward.
But she also has her own argument of why she didn't. It's two people, and you get to make your own choices in life.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it was kind of... I mean, we were getting into... you're with someone and pushing to that point, is that on me as being the partner of why we've gotten to where we've gotten to?
I think something that I really like that this film does, where other films might fail or like kind of indulge themselves to do so, is with a film like this, I feel like it'd be very easy for writers to take this character and make it so that it's almost kind of misery porn, in that you could have a cascade of events or circumstances or things that make the main character look worse than she actually is, to the point where like it becomes frustrating, where you're like, I know this character's good, but everybody else thinks she's a piece of shit, and I want her to pull through. And you could easily be very manipulative in that way, and like some films are, but this film does enough to make it feel natural, and it feels realistic that way. It feels like you're interested in watching a human being go through this and see the outcome of it. You're not necessarily like seeing the great struggle of somebody going through like all these arduous, different, meaningless things that some movies like to delve into. You're really just watching this human person go through this, and because of that in itself is inherently interesting with the way it's filmed, with the way it's written, with the way it's acted. Yeah,
they do a really great job of teetering the line without pushing the audience one way or another into feeling a certain way.
I agree.
I think that there's a lot of people, and the what I liked about it was that I see it one way, someone else could see it a completely different way, and it's hard to, there'd be arguments there for and against, but at the end of the day, it'd still be kind of like one of those open-ended questions of you're not going to have an answer to it. But I always like movies where they can put the water half full. Someone sees a half full, someone sees a half empty, and you could sit there and argue about it forever just about how you see it. And at the end of the day, I mean, it's just going to be sitting there. So they did a really great job with that. I like the French lawyer quite a bit.
He was great. One of the best head of hairs I've ever seen in any movie. It rivals Mads Mikkelsen to me. I was like, that guy has a great head of hair.
Oh, no. Not her lawyer.
Oh.
Yeah, no, he does too, though. That's a silver fox.
Oh, yeah.
That dude, yeah.
You're talking about Baldy.
Yeah.
The opposite.
I thought you were making a joke there.
No.
And I was like, Mads, why is he's never bald?
No, if I'm trying to make a joke, you can telegraph it because it won't land, as evidenced by the previous two jokes in this episode. But no, I agree. He's also
the prosecutor.
He's
right?
also very compelling.
Yes.
Well, it's fun because he's able to make it fun and interesting without it being either too over the top and cartoonish or too much to the point where you're really supposed to not like this character. He really does feel like he's just kind of an asshole who's doing his job.
Yeah.
He doesn't feel like that out of line, especially with what we know about how the legal system in this movie is portrayed.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I guess he can do this. I guess he can get away with this.
There wasn't anything where he was pulling punches or like winking at the judge to say, hey, let me keep going with this or anything like that. I mean, I think she called him out a couple times for overstepping boundaries or saying, wrap it up, you know. And
one of the things that I will always retain, and I didn't mean to cut you off if you had something else to say. One of the things I'll always retain when thinking about the job of a prosecutor or the job of a defense attorney is that their job isn't necessarily to prove your innocence or to make the jury think that you're innocent of a crime that you've committed where you're clearly guilty.
Yeah.
Your job is to make sure that the other side is doing their job and crossing their T's and dotting their I's and making sure that they don't miss a step in anything. And that's kind of what was in the back of my head when I was watching him, give his dialogue or like perform as this kid. Like that's what was going through my mind when I was watching him. And that helped me kind of get behind a lot of what was going on with scenes that involved his character.
Talking about the prosecutor, right?
Yeah, the Baldy.
Yeah.
It's like this just feels like a guy who's really doing his job and trying to be thorough at it.
I never questioned him and his. Well, I take that back. At the beginning, I did, but then I saw what the rules were for being in the courtroom. And I was like, oh, he's operating within the rules of the courtroom. Mm-hmm. He was never overstepping his boundaries, or it never got into like too movie moment where he's just completely coming up with random ass shit.
Right. It never felt like a sort of Few Good Men thing where like he has this Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson moment.
Yeah.
Where like, oh no, now it's flipped on him and he's proven to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, it never feels over the top in that way.
No, it doesn't. And a lot of it is whatever he brings up, it's from witness testimony when they get these people on the stands. That it was another weird thing if they just stand up there and kind of talk to the judge while they're getting, asked questions or interrogated, or theories just coming up out of the blue on how would you say this could happen, which that's where I was like a little off. But as the movie goes along, they keep that up. And I think they have to keep doing it in order to open up our minds as an audience about if we were closed off into thinking that she did do it, or we were closed off thinking that she didn't do it. It's really opening up these doors into saying, oh, well, I guess I could see that.
Yeah, it like we're sort of almost part of the jury in that it makes us think of all the different aspects that could or maybe couldn't have gone into this situation, sort of the same way that the jury has to think about that, sort of the same way the whole court has to think about that. It's like we have to think about every single angle that this could have led to this outcome. And my biggest gripe with it was, and it did hamper some of the movie for me, was they show the kid, and I know we talked about it a little bit, but they show the kid and they kind of lead us into believing he's blind, or there's some form of blindness, like he can't see something. I mean, he's got the dog. He's kind of walking around. It was weird at the beginning of the movie because he definitely looks like the dog's a seeing eye dog, but then he's playing fetch with the dog, and then they don't really talk about the kid's problem until they get to about 2/3 through the movie, and then it really comes back up in a big way. And we talk about being rewarded, as into okay, and I kind of thought that the film might go this way, but I'm like, as an audience member, I can't be questioning where this kid's at. I mean, and to me, it's like it made no difference if he was kind of blind or wasn't blind. Yeah.
So I thought that was a little bit of a red herring, and that really annoyed me, and so it was distracting throughout the film. Now,
like they didn't do a great enough job of explaining his situation.
If they would have went at the beginning of the film, because I'm telling, the beginning of the film, the kid's walking back, and all of a sudden it's just boom, police are there, everything's happening, right? Mm-hmm. If they would have did and had some sort of exposition about the kid and his ailment with whatever happened, at least at that way, as an audience member, if it ever got brought back up, we're kind of aware. What I felt like they did was they hinted at it, and then they made that part of one of the big reveals along with what had to happen at the very end.
Like they almost kind of hid the fact that his sight is as impaired as it is.
Yeah.
And then when it comes back later, it feels like a 1-2 punch.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I was like, that I didn't reward that. Like that's where if you don't reward that, it kind of feels not necessarily like a trick. I just felt like it was distracting.
I gotcha.
You know,
I personally didn't have too much of an issue with that. I think I was able to kind of gauge that he was as sightfully impaired as he was, for lack of a better term. I will say, at no point does it ever feel specific.
Right.
At no point is it ever for sure until like towards the very end, like you said, whether or not he is 100% blind or whether or not he's 85% blind. And I think that kind of leaves a little bit of room for error, especially when you're not really... Because like a lot of what I love about this movie is that it really does show you and it doesn't spoon feed you a lot of what's going on,
Agreed.
which I appreciate. It is one of those things where like maybe we could have used a little bit more on how this kid's sight works, just base level, so that we can relate it to what else is happening in this movie.
it's kind of, I mean, it's just commentary on the film about, I think, what could have made it a little bit better. Because I also didn't see when the big reveal comes how his ailment played into it. Just kind of thinking out loud about it. I'm sure it's more so he couldn't see what was going on with his mom and dad, but he could hear everything going on with the mom and dad. So, I mean, if you're going off that aspect of it, a lot of, you know, how did this event occur and what was he to see or privy to know really stems into the fact that he couldn't see the things going on, but he definitely heard the things going on.
Yeah.
But at the, you know, but still at the end of the day, I don't know if it was that big of a deal to have it that way. You know,
I understand.
That's why I kind of get frustrated, because it feels like if they would have taken out that little bit of a, not plot hole, but like, you know, the plot device, it wouldn't have impacted what was going on at all.
Right.
And I could be off. I mean, someone probably could tell me, no, they had it this way, and then it's like, oh yeah, okay, I can see it. But from my lens viewing it, it was just distracting, and I didn't see a need for it. And then by the time we get to the end, you can kind of see it playing out.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if on a rewatch you'll feel different about it, one way or the other. But I guess
I mean, I enjoyed the thing. I thought Sandra Hüller was great in it.
I mean specifically about the blind part.
I maybe because and we're not trying to. I don't think we're trying to give anything away with these films, because I don't know if we're staying away from.
Yeah, let's just say. Yeah, I mean, we kind of have said a few details about this movie already, but
I don't think we've given anything away that's revealing, and this, especially this one, the outcome is truly what you make of it. Yeah, and with this one specifically, I don't think this one there needs to be any spoilers with it. Because, you know, I mean, it's...
The appeal of it is the drama. The appeal of it is the character interactions and the writing and the dialogue and the way it's delivered and acted.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, this is one of my favorite movies of 2023, far and away.
Yeah, this was a really well-written movie, well-acted movie, and based off a singular event going on and kind of the cascading emotions that happen from it or lead up to the event, and us as audience members learning more and more. It's really well-written and well done.
I think so, and I think that's a good place to wrap this discussion up, unless you had anything else to say.
No, that's about it. I mean, I think all these films, well, except one, I probably would recommend.
So, what would you rate it, and what would you rank it? I'm passing the ball to you.
I thought we were gonna save the rankings till the end.
Oh, I thought we were naming the rankings after each film, but we can save them to the end.
I think we should save it for the end.
Let's save them for the end,
and then we could at least do ratings on it. I think I'm gonna pull this up right now.
Okay.
I gave this a 8 out of 10.
Solid.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I think there's just a couple things in here that a little distracting, but once I let my mind kind of go into where the film was going and allowing it to kind of, you know, whatever you want to call it, like a fine wine, breathe. It's enjoyable, and I always like movies that kind of focus on singular events where you don't have a whole lot going on, because you can let the writing really take over and let the characters really get into each of the moments. And this one does that very well. Sandra Hüller was fantastic in it. And I, like, when we talk about Best Actress, I didn't even think about her. And then I was going over it on like Friday or Saturday, just a couple days ago before the Oscars came out. I was like, oh, I was like, man, she was fantastic in that thing.
Lifting this movie off of her back
Yeah.
Like Stone Cold Steve Austin to another nameless wrestler that I'll just insert.
Cena.
John Cena, sure, yes.
Yeah.
Topical.
Yeah, tropical.
I can get into my rating then. This film, I love it. I think the acting is stellar. Sandra Hüller knocks it out of the ballpark. I think that the narrative is so interesting and the dialogue and writing is so crisp. It's one of those movies where when I first saw it, I really did like it from the get-go, but it's one of those movies where I thought, I really enjoyed this. I don't know if I'm going to think about it as much given some time. And months have passed since I've watched it, and I still think about a lot of the different things that I like about this movie. And I think that says a lot about my feelings towards it. So this is a 9 out of 10 from me.
Nice.
Very, very well written, well crafted.
That's a high rating from you.
Love this movie.
Yeah.
So ball's in your court.
All right.
Let's pick the next one.
You know what? We're just gonna hop into it. I'm gonna talk about the Holdovers.
You know, funny enough, I was struggling between that and Anatomy of a Fall to be my first pick. So
yeah,
natural progression.
Love that. The Holdovers. So this is a 2023 film, starring directed by Alexander Payne did this.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I didn't even think about that.
He's bringing the pain.
Yeah.
Tyler Perry's House of Pain. David
Hemmingson is the writer, starring Paul Giamatti as Paul Hunnam, Divine Joy Randolph as Mary Lamb, Dominic Sessa as Angus Tully, and then a lot of people probably I don't even think that you'd really recognize.
Nope, I don't think so.
You know, a lot of people just thrust in here. And anyways, the story is we're at this boys prep school, really ritzy boys prep school, as we're supposed to believe, with like senators' kids coming in here, governors' kids, the rich of the rich going here to get them into Harvard, Yale, Princeton, be the next generation of leaders. And we just find out that these kids are really shitty. And a couple kids, as winter break comes along, have to stay at the prep school because parents aren't there to pick them up to bring them on their vacation into the Alps or in a helicopter to Colorado. And eventually one does happen where 3 or 4 of the kids get picked up by a helicopter, and Angus Tully's left with Paul Hunnam and Mary Lamb, and they go on a little coming of age, I guess, maybe a little bit of Odd Couple, just really finding out the joys of life, and these small little moments that you can take solace in. The divine joys. Yeah. Aha. So I watched this. You guys, we talked about it. I know that. I think I said that I was like, this has got to be Gideon's favorite movie of all time. Spoiler alert: he does love this movie. Yeah, I'm not shocked. The main Angus looks a lot like Gideon. He reminded me a lot of Gideon. Yeah, I was gonna bring that up too. Like, he gave me major Gideon vibes. Yeah, if you guys listening, you hear Gideon all the time, just go watch the Holdovers and watch Angus, and you'll pretty much Yeah, and that's a compliment, hopefully, to Gideon. Hopefully, we're not offending him with this. I don't think he would be. But yeah, this is it's a sweet story about these kind of nuanced characters that grow together and build some sort of trust amongst their fellow man and really start to get out of their shell. Yeah, it's sort of, I don't want to say trope, but it is that idea of, these unlikely people who are forced into a situation to where they have to spend time together. They sort of understand each other a little bit more because of the time that they spend, and from there, a lot of the story beats and the emotion comes out of the screenplay. Very, very whimsical, very small stakes. Also, I don't know if you mentioned, but it's set in the 70s, so it's got a very 70s vibe, even with the way it's filmed. It's kind of like that letterbox format with the saturated colors and everything. Yeah, and I really liked how Alexander Payne had a lot of moving objects against still imagery. I love the way this movie looks. It's fantastic, and it's somewhere near Boston. It's got to be. Yeah, it's in the New England area. Yeah. It's kind of non-specific with the initial location, but then they go into Boston later. Yeah, the school, the Barton School for Men or whatever, the Barton School for Boys. Yeah, and so I just really like this. I like this movie. This was a fun, whimsical movie that had a lot of low stakes events that occur throughout it, but help with the growth of the characters. And I always appreciate you don't always have to have like a big haymaker, a life-changing event happen for people to make changes in their lives, No,
this is a movie that feels very grounded, very personal.
Yes.
It doesn't have any sort of like big conflict going on. It is very feel good in that way.
Yes.
In that like a lot of the emotions that you feel are through the characters relating to each other, trying to understand each other, and given the circumstances they're in, just figuring out a way to make the best of it.
Yeah, and so Paul Hunnam, played by Paul Giamatti, is this old curmudgeon professor that's...
Second movie in a row we've discussed where the main character is the name of the actor. You got Paul, and you got Sandra.
She's Sandra in the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't think about that.
Little fun anecdote that I just threw out there at you, rapid fire. Sorry to derail you.
No, he's obviously been wronged by life.
Yes,
and you've got this kid here that's teen angst, if you will. He's
got his whole life ahead of him, but at the same time, he has his own struggles. So
they play it out really. I mean, they kind of show you right up front, why he's kind of in the emotional state that he's in, and then we start to learn more and more about this kid, and it's always fun too because there's like the pulling of the curtain, and every time that they do it, it's never the exact truth of what's going on, until I think about the very, very end of the film.
Right.
And, it's kind of hard to talk about it in the sense, because I always think about these films of being with the relationship of the characters and them going through everything together. It's kind of hard to say like, oh, this event was very genuine, or this was, not great, or the whole movie is just really fun.
No, that's 100% the case. And I guess I can kind of chime in with my own personal experience with this movie. So, if you guys listen to this, you might know that I'm a purveyor of Letterboxd. I like Letterboxd. I use it all the time. That's how I log my movies. It's kind of like my equivalent to Max IMDb, sort of that different sides of the street sort of thing we have going on with us. I was Family Video. He was Blockbuster.
It's a generational difference.
A little bit. 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah.
Let's say 5 years, right?
Okay.
If we're being generous.
Sure.
Anyway, Letterboxd, you're able to follow people and you can see the movies that they log and they come up on your feed, the last one that they watched. And I saw that Gideon and Lauren, shout out to them, they help with this podcast, they watched the Holdovers at the same time and they both gave it 5 stars.
Oh.
And I thought to myself, hot damn.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a preview for this. I remember thinking that it was kind of funny, quirky looking.
Yep.
But I didn't think much past that. And then I saw their ratings and I thought, well, maybe I'll check it out. Maybe I'll go see it. Because that's a nice feature of Letterboxd. You can see what your friends like and then you get an idea of something that you might like if your tastes align. And so Megan and I checked this movie out in theaters, and I want to say it was probably one of the best theater experiences I think I've had in a while.
Good.
Like, it was not only really funny, the people that we saw it with, which there weren't like a ton of people, but there were a few scattered about the theater.
Yeah.
They also had a really good time with it. It just felt good. It looked good. It was really enjoyable just to sit there and watch just a well-written, well-performed comedy movie with genuine emotion in it.
Yes.
And that's really the biggest thing that I appreciate about this movie, is that a lot of it feels genuine. And there's some people that I've seen criticize this movie almost for being Oscar baity, which I don't agree with at all.
I would disagree 100%.
I don't think that that's the case, because I feel like this movie clearly has more of a purpose than what some people might label it as Oscar bait.
If there was not, there are elements that I could see it, but if this were Oscar baity, they would have highlighted those elements.
I think people say that because this movie does have a genuineness to it that a lot of movies just don't.
Yeah, it's not cold or calloused.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And like some people might find, and we're going to talk about Zone of Interest later on, but like that's a movie where people could point to and perfectly exemplify, like, I like this movie because of the distance, because of how cold and emotionless a lot of this is.
We're not there yet, but
We're not there yet.
Yeah.
But I really like this movie for the opposite reason. I love this movie because of how warm and genuine and well thought out this feels. It doesn't feel like anything is shoehorned. It doesn't feel like anything is ham-fisted. To me, it all feels like it has a purpose and a genuineness to it.
There's a natural progression of events that happen.
Yes.
And there isn't. The only thing that I would say is they thrust in a trope at the very end of this thing that I that's the only thing that I felt was really put in here that seemed out of place, but given everything that led up to it, it's definitely understandable and it's touching.
Do you want to say spoilers and then we can get into the specifics?
Sure.
Spoilers for Holdovers.
Yeah. So the
I love the pause. I love the pause so much.
We'll give them time.
Okay.
The dad element of it, I definitely felt was pushed in.
Now, when you say dad, do you mean dad or stepdad?
Dad.
Okay.
The dad.
The dad he goes and visits
stepdad
in
I could
Boston.
care less about. I mean, that was the whole time they're making this. So Angus is disenfranchised a little bit with his family after what happened with the mom and the dad. The dad goes through some sort of mental breakdown, and I didn't have necessarily a problem with that. I really thought that was touching. And sure. And I think about me and Preston all the time. And I think if you have if you got a son, you kind of think about these things of the impact that you have in your kids' lives and how much, no matter what you do, they're kind of your dad. That's your dad. So watching it, it's like, oh, I get that. But then the dinner scene with Giamatti and him, and they're talking, and he's like, and then it gets into a point where he's kind of just, he's visibly upset and crying, and then he goes, I just don't. What if I have this mental disease? And I was like, okay. That's where it lost me at, because I know one of the effects of writing is when you talk about journeys or growth or just going through a journey. One of the things that you can have in there is the relationship with the father and the son, right? That's why Star Wars was so big, right? Oh shit, maybe cut that out. Maybe not. I don't know.
I think it's okay.
All right.
I think we'll be fine.
No one really knows what's going on. It could be Han Solo with his kid.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So
it could be any of the fathers with their kids.
Yeah, that's true. And that's the only thing that I was like, this
could
feels.
Be Jar Jar Binks with his son.
Oh, Jar Jar.
Is your father. Megan's gonna
it's
skip
135 degrees and he's sitting in that rubber suit.
I felt so bad for him. And then he got a ton of shit for it from fans because they hated the character, and he tried to kill himself. It's so sad.
Oh yeah, it's tragic.
It's tragic. Jar Jar is a tragic character.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that on a different episode.
TBD.
God, that'd be an awesome documentary. Probably not.
It'd be a sad documentary.
Yeah, probably
honestly.
not. That whole movie's riddled with just, because the little Anakin kid, I guess he got into bipolar. Or
yeah, that's even probably worse.
The only one that
it's hard to measure that sort of thing, right? But that's also really bad.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Anyways,
there's our Star Wars tangent for the episode.
Yeah. So, yeah. That was about the only thing that I thought was shoehorned in there, really. And there was, and Giamatti coming out and saying, "Hey, you're not, and doing that's not you. That's not what you're going to be. You're going to be a fine young man." And and it gives him some lines to spit out there to help this kid out, and you can really actually get a sense that he actually cares for him, for Angus, which you don't.
I think that's kind of why I forgive that scene a little bit more. Is
because
here. Okay, it does. I can kind of believe that he would be worried about that sort of thing for himself, because he's just a kid, he's insecure, he doesn't know exactly what the future holds for him. And then also that scene kind of, like you said, it serves to kind of parallel that father-son dynamic with Paul Giamatti and Dominic Sessa.
Yes.
So I think I'm able to look past it a little bit more.
Not a little bit. I can too. When we talk about shoehorn, I'm that they put that in there so they could have that conversation. That's what I'm saying.
One thing that, because I had to ask if you were talking about the dad or the stepdad, because that's kind of not necessarily an issue that I have, but one that I could see people having is towards the end you kind of have the cliche evil stepfather comes in and wants to send his kid to boarding school and blah blah blah. But I personally don't have an issue with it because
they played it up the whole time like that. I mean, it wasn't
right. It acts as like a good sort of satisfying reveal of this guy is a tangible asshole. We actually get to see what his home life is like and how that plays out.
The conversation he has, hey, we're going here, we're not going to pick you up. I mean, you can tell it's the mom obviously has no cares in the world. You know, whether she loves or doesn't love her son, you don't really know. You know, and you can tell that she's being whimsied away by the stepdad, and it plays. There's the narrative is throughout the whole film. I mean, Angus keeps bringing it up on this will happen if these things take place, and that's why I can't let that happen. So
it doesn't just come out of nowhere.
Right. And that's why, like, once they get to the end, I'm like, oh, I'm completely fine with this because we've already kind of built up to this point. I was very curious. So they have the dinner and they go back and the school's going back on. I'm like, I wonder how they're wrapping this up. And once again, I mean, not necessarily low stakes, but in terms of that versus, Superman. Right,
or just like think about how like they could have easily killed off Paul Giamatti's character.
He goes back and gets hit with an icicle, and all of a sudden,
or he just like has a heart attack.
Yeah, like that would have been like, oh wow, like no, they're playing up to what they've talked about throughout the whole film, and then there's that last little curtain reveal that no one saw coming. But at the end of the day, it's not very big, but it's being rewarded. We are being rewarded with events that have taken place up to that point, which
it keeps it lighthearted while still maintaining stakes with the characters.
Yeah, and you get to see, I mean, that's why you could say Paul Giamatti's like, I would say, the main character in this because he's the one that takes the biggest risk out of everyone.
I mean, he's the lens that we see this movie through his eye, so to speak, his lazy eye, which props to the contact manager in charge of him. Like that was, I had to question whether or not that was actually his eye in the movie.
I'm going to say this, and I hate to do it, but he goes, it's this one. He pointed to his right eye, and then when he's driving in his car, it was the left eye.
Oh,
so I was
fucking 3 out of 10. Fuck this movie.
I hate when I have to do that where I'm like, I'm just gonna get into realistic mode here real quick. I want to see if they hold it up. They didn't, but I didn't really care because Giamatti goes through it, and he's like, and if you wanted to know, it's this one.
Scene logistics, more like scene logist shits.
Yeah, shits.
Damn, fuck this movie.
Yeah. Immediately down 2 stars, and I was so thinking it was gonna be great.
I was ready until this discussion.
But yeah, I also thought it was kind of funny. I don't know, he had a thing, so I mean, I guess we're led to believe. So he took the cognac too from that guy's office, right? And that's what he squiggles in his mouth, spits it out, and then tosses the cognac out of the car. Like, is that? The ending was so ambiguous to me. I'm like, all right, Giamatti's going on his next adventure, but like he does the thing where he takes a splash of the alcohol, rinses it in his mouth, spits it out, and then I can't remember if he throws the bottle out of the car or if he just spits it out and then he takes a left turn and the movie's over.
I think the latter is what happens if I remember, but it's been a long time since I've seen this movie. But yeah, I mean, I'd gladly rewatch it. I fucking love this film.
This isn't one that goes down very easy. I think this is if you're ever in a dour mood, put this movie on, and I think it would lift your spirits a little bit. Because I think the nice thing about this too is the characters are all relatable in terms of what's going on in their lives, and you kind of forget sometimes that it is Christmas and these people don't have anyone in their lives except the people they're surrounded with, and that's where I kind of give applause to this thing because like you forget that because they're having so much fun or they're doing some different things in their lives that they've never done. They're taking those chances, and you kind of forget that they were placed in a really shitty situation, and they're making the best of it.
Yeah. No, writing's great. Performances are great. I do think we should probably wrap this discussion up because we are close to an hour of recording already, and we've discussed 2 movies.
Yeah. I'm putting you in charge of, well, we have the 4 that we could probably spend 20 minutes on all combined.
Yeah, right. That's kind of my thinking as well.
Yeah.
So was there anything else you want to say about the Holdovers real quick?
Nope.
All right.
Nope.
Let's get into ratings. I guess I can go first.
Yeah.
This is a 10 out of 10 for me.
Wow.
I fucking love this movie.
Wow.
It is one of those, like I said, the theater experience, the warmness, the way this movie's shot, the absolute good vibes, the acting and writing. I was behind 100% of it. I don't think I had laughed that hard in a theater setting in a long time. And I'm someone that I find it's hard for me to laugh at just straight comedies. And this one, it just tickled my funny bone in all the right ways.
There's so many quirks that happen in this thing that really make you giggle, and like a genuine warm laugh. Like not like really. I mean, I didn't like balls out start laughing, but a lot of the emotions, like if I laughed, it was a genuine like, oh man.
Yes.
You know.
Absolutely.
Even though that was fake as shit. It was more genuine than my fake laugh I just did there, but you get the sense of how hard I really laughed.
I'll make it sound genuine in the post edit.
All right.
Don't worry. I was thinking I'd just put that in. All right. Mac.
Yeah, I have this. This is about as close to a 10 out of 10 that you can get. I have it as a 9 out of 10.
Hell yeah.
I think the only reason that it kind of kept me back is warm, fuzzy movies like this. I just don't know the rewatchability on it for me.
For sure.
And it's not necessarily like I couldn't turn this on and watch it. I just don't know how in depth I'd keep paying attention. Like when I had this on the first time, I was so invested in it. And you don't get a whole lot of movies that kind of hold your attention like that for that long. And I think like on a second take, I don't know if I gathered much more than I did from the first time. But I would tell anyone and their mom and their dad to watch this thing. I mean, this thing is just really fun. It's warm. And it will, you really won't think that you've been watching 2 hours and 15 minutes of a movie.
Yeah. A lot of why I think a lot of what I use to gauge this movie on how much I love it is how excited I am at the thought of showing other people.
Yes.
And that's a little bit of like how I gauge my feelings of the movie itself.
I almost wish this wasn't Oscar nominated because this would be a really nice treasure to have. Like you got people coming over and it's like, man, like rainy day out or something like that. Like let's just put on something fun. This is an easy movie to throw on where people, you could probably talk. There'd be like a lot of commotion going on. You know, there like in terms of like, you know, like when people are talking with a low whisper and it's just very lively and you can tell that people are talking about the film and not necessarily about other events.
Yes, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next film. Let's get one of the ones that we've already discussed out of the way, just to get it.
The punch because I was going to do it too.
Yeah. I kind of want to do Killers.
Yeah.
Just solely for the fact that we can talk about the fact that it won 0 Oscars.
Oh my God.
So
yeah, take it away.
Quick rundown. Killers of the Flower Moon, directed by Martin Scorsese. It's his latest movie that came out this past year. Is about the sort of cultural overlap of white people in the Osage tribe in the 1920s, I believe. Sort of off the backs of the First World War. The Osage strikes oil, but then there's sort of a body of government, I guess, for lack of a better word, that oversees the wealth in the community. So then there's a lot of white integration, a lot of biracial marriage, specifically to gain the wealth from the Native Americans. And it's all portrayed through the eyes of Ernest Burkhart, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and Molly Kyle, played by Lily Gladstone, and I forget his name, but the uncle, played by Robert De Niro. I almost had all the characters from memory.
Man, pretty good.
Thank you. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And like I said before, we've discussed this on a previous episode in full. So if you want further details on our thoughts on the film overall,
King Hale,
William King Hale. There it is. Check out our discussion. I think it's a good one.
Yeah.
But we can talk about this movie a little bit, but also how
take it away.
Scorsese just, man, my boy. I felt so bad for him. He lost again. The one thing I was really surprised about, and we talked about this earlier, was the fact that Lily Gladstone did not get Best Actress.
I can't believe that.
That was like one of the, not necessarily upset because I'm glad Emma Stone got it overall. I'm glad Stone, huh?
Yeah.
Emma Stone. I'm glad Emma. I'm really working here. But I don't think it was an undeserved win for her personally, but I really would have liked to see Lily Gladstone win it. and take it home.
She's fantastic in it.
She was by far and away the most outstanding part of the
beat
film.
up face that she wears throughout this whole thing, and just knowing that she's been taken advantage and there's nothing that she can do with her plot in life. Just it resonates.
It's amazing to think about the fact that her character is the most relegated to a specific location or a specific type of character. And the fact that she's also one of the most dynamic and interesting parts of the film overall. Like, she's given probably one of the least to do in the film.
Yes.
And she still does the most in terms of performance and memorability and just bringing this character to life.
She's the rock in the film to tie the Osage with their feelings and their strife with what's going on to us as an audience.
Right. 100%.
There's a lot of times where other things are going on with some of the members of the Osage community that are either having fun or they know they're being taken advantage of, but they don't mind it as long as they play into the game. And she is completely just beaten up, and she kind of knows what's happening, but at the same time, there's a kindred connection with Ernest.
Right. No, there's a genuine love in their relationship. And that's what makes it so interesting. That's what makes it so dynamic. Because, I mean, it could easily be a sort of thing where, like, he's a completely abusive asshole. He's like Henry Hill from Goodfellas, where, like, he's just a complete shitbag to his wife the entire time.
Yeah.
But I like the way that this movie portrays that relationship, and that, like, there is genuine feeling there. There is genuine love that just... unfortunately, money just gets in the way of.
And she does a good job without having to say anything, showing it. And
absolutely.
I think it's hard to get. I think that it's hard to teeter that line that she does in this film. And for right or wrong, I mean, I thought she should have got it. Like I said, her or Sandra Hüller, I thought were fantastic and really rocks in the movies that they were in.
Right, because it's not like she's playing the character as dumb either. Because there's an easy way to play this character where, like, she could just be totally oblivious to everything going on. But, like, even from her character introduction, you get the sense that she is one of the smartest characters in the entire movie.
Very wise. Like, she knows the game that's being played, and she's trying to do her best to avoid getting pulled into it.
Right, exactly.
And she does, and she has, because of her love for Ernest, she, I would say, looks the other way more than she probably cared to. But because of that connection that they had, and I mean, it's genuine in the film, and I think it's hard to do that. I think it's 100%. Hard for her to teeter that line to make us believe that, one, she knows what's going on, but two, she has this connection with this guy that she's being completely taken advantage of, and show both of those, like, just kind of hover between those states of mind, and I thought she did it elegantly. I thought she did it. It was fantastic.
So here's my question for you.
Okay.
Kind of going back to the Oscars itself.
Yes.
Do you think that a lot of what had to do with this movie not getting awards was the sheer runtime and the kind of repetitive nature of this film? Or do you think that it's more so just the fact that there were a lot of really good movies that were up for Best Picture this year?
Like,
if this movie came out in, let's say, the year that Coda came out, it probably would have won, right?
You'd think. The subject matter at hand, I don't think that the Academy likes to be pointed at and laughed at, because this is another one of the Scorsese films.
You don't have to say that twice.
White men doing terrible things, you know? And this is a very heavy-handed subject matter based on true events that makes people feel a certain type of way. The Holocaust being another one of those things that happened, or, slavery. I mean, it's kind of, there's a lot of things that has just happened in the history of the world that makes you squeamish and uncomfortable. And I think this movie, with the subject matter, was one of the reasons, and with the runtime being so long, like, there's never an unrelenting feeling that we have as audience members of feeling better. Like, it just goes worse to worse to worse. There's never, like, a moment that there's any levity, until maybe the very end of it, the very ending.
It's a stone that's, like, rolling down a hill towards a pile of kittens, and it's going at such a slow rate that you can't help but, like, just feel dread the whole time.
Exactly.
And and like you said, I've talked to people who they've seen the film, and while they agree that it is technically a good film, they can't get to the point of enjoying it because of how miserable and unrelenting it is.
Yeah.
And I have to tell them, like, well, that's, like, your opinion is valid, but that's also the point of the film. That's what it's trying to get across. It's that it's trying to hammer in the fact that, like, all this shit is bad. And if you're trying to look for it, because, like, people could watch movies like Goodfellas, or they can watch movies like Wolf of Wall Street, and there's an element of enjoyability and fun in those movies where, like, oh, we get to see these guys being crazy, being crass,
idiots doing idiotic things,
and, like, you know, we're shown them in, like, a lighthearted way sometimes, but then it gets to the heavy shit and you're reminded of the reality of the movie. Whereas, like, this one, it's not like that, in that, like, you're shown all the bad things and, like, all the seedy, nefarious like dealings that happen behind the scenes to lead to all the horrible things going on. And it's like you said, it's unrelenting. It doesn't let up, and it doesn't offer anything in the way of fun and enjoyability.
It's, you know, I think this is Sam's favorite movie of the year. I know Sam wanted to see this win Best Picture. And it's always, I always like getting his perspective on it. And it, like we talked about, I mean, he sees it as another Goodfellas-esque movie, you know, and
it's basically a mafia movie.
And DiCaprio doing stupid things, and I mean, he, you know, some of the events that take place are funny, but it's almost like the game's rigged, kind of funny, and that's where it's still uncomfortable. You know, like
the humor kind of derives from the fact, I can't believe these guys are getting away with this.
Yes, or like, you know, like he told, was it Smokey? Or you remember
the insurance thing?
Yeah, where the guy stole his car, and then it turned out to be this huge botch fest, and like he completely explained it wrong. Smokey did it wrong, you know, everything, and they still get away with it or whatever. And it's like, yeah, the moments like that are funny. It's not necessarily lighthearted or should be humorous, but you're watching idiots doing idiotic things, and you know, with that perspective, I see where he gets enjoyment from this, but you know, in terms of being just snuffed or robbed, it's kind of hard because what it was getting pitted against, I don't know if it stood above all else.
And that's kind of where my feeling is.
Yeah,
it's like, it's just such a competitive year, and there's so many movies that are going for the same thing, where, like, on an individual elemental level, a lot of these movies kind of do certain things better.
100%, but I don't know if this one did. I don't know if, like, the costume design in this, or the production design, or the sound, you know, the original score with it. Like, I think it's just very competitive, and for it to not take home anything, I understand. I guess the problem that I have is the Oscars are so, like, high school politics, where who's ever funneling up the most money, or
it's a popularity contest.
Yeah, and that's where I kind of get into, like, all right, well, it should have got something if that's the case. Like, if this is all subjective, money doesn't matter, we're just picking these things as the way that they stand, I think it probably should have won something, but even then, I don't know what I'd hold it up against.
Yeah, for sure. I think we can move on from that. Like I said, there's a bigger discussion that we have in a previous episode, but for right now, we do got to keep the train rolling, baby.
My score for it was, I had a 9 out of 10 for it.
I think I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
So not too different in how we feel about it. I think the runtime, if I remember right, was a little bit more of a bog for me than it was for you. But
well, I
don't remember all the details of the discussion.
No, this one for me, watching it the first time, no, I thought it went down. It was smooth. Like, I let the time go, and I don't think I got caught up with, like, looking around. Well, not like some other movies,
right?
But rewatchability on this thing, I don't know if I'd have the same. I just want. There's not enough lighthearted moments in this thing to make me like, oh, I will enjoy this, because even when I'm laughing, it's like, yeah, but they're still getting away with it, which makes me feel not right.
And that was. I do like the unrelenting nature of this film. I think a big problem and this is to wrap up the entire discussion.
Yeah.
A big problem that I remember having was the repetitiveness of it hammering home how bad everything was.
Yeah.
Where we were just getting the same point over and over again. It's like, okay, I get it. I don't need to understand the same thing that I'm being shown from 20 minutes before.
Yeah.
But I just remember that that's where I was at.
Let's do Maestro.
All right, Maestro.
Yeah, Maestro.
Take it away, Maestro.
Yeah, so written and directed. Is it written by Bradley Cooper?
Bradley Cooper and Josh Singer.
Yes, directed by Bradley Cooper. We are starring Bradley Cooper as Leonard Bernstein.
Cooper.
We got Carey Mulligan as Felicia Montalegre. I'm not sure if that's right.
Sure.
Matt Bomer as David Oppenheim. And then a bunch of other people that are just in this thing.
Someone should tell him he spelled his last name wrong. He didn't finish it.
I know, right? I was just thinking about that too. I was like, oh, okay. We'll be talking about that at some point. Yeah, so this is about the love story that develops between Leonard Bernstein and Felicia at a young age as they kind of get to know each other through the acting circuit, with Lenny diving into different sexual preferences, never really knowing what side of the fence he's leaning on, and just being this eccentric character that he is.
He just kind of spins the wheel of fortune.
Yeah, and really putting Felicia at wit's end, if you will, with just dealing with a person of this nature, you know?
Yeah, it's like, oh boy, there goes my husband fucking dudes again.
Yeah. When he's at the party doing, well, he didn't start doing coke till the 80s, but he's at that party, he's hammered, he's like smoking a cigarette, and he catches the one dude's eye, and he's like, well, who are you? What's your name?
Well, let's step out in the hallway and we can kind of make out while my wife is looking for me.
So yeah, when we originally talked about this, I think I enjoyed the film way more than you did.
Yes.
And I've actually had time to think about this thing, and it has gone south.
Oh, you let it rot?
Oh, it rotted indeed.
Instead of marinate, you just let it out in the sun?
I used to think that
you left it in the vestibule, much like Snoopy.
Oh my god, dude! I like to think that movies that focus on like the titular character, I really like with life events that happen, and we kind of can see why the person is the way he is, or doing things that are foolish or outlandish, or I have respect for people that are kind of, I mean, geniuses in a sense.
They're eccentric. They have qualities that are very much not common in most people, and they're worth almost in of themselves just crafting a story around.
Character study.
Even if it's not about like what they're doing or what they're known for. It's like, who is this guy? I'm interested.
We could have had a completely different movie about him and not even focus on his music, and I think that would have been better than what we got. Instead, the story focuses around him and Felicia, which... it's not great.
But does it though? Does it focus on him and Felicia?
I don't know what it focuses on.
Because it kind of just like, it focuses on different ancillary things that make it feel like this movie ultimately doesn't have a focus. Because to me, it feels like this movie is a series of demos of what a better film could be. So,
this is an Oscar Beatty film. This is when you talk about Oscar Beatty.
100% Oscar Beatty.
This is an Oscar Beatty film.
So it feels, I mean, it's kind of similar to Belfast in a way to me, where it feels like it's trying to be heartfelt at moments. It feels like it's trying to be engaging and funny at moments. With like, the Snoopy, someone left Snoopy in the vestibule. Haha, I'm so quirky. Yeah. It feels like it's trying to be dramatic at moments with him arguing, with his wife. I'm on the verge of tears. I'm so passionate about this movie. It just feels like it's trying to encompass so many different elements of what Bradley Cooper wanted to incorporate from Leonard Bernstein's life.
Yes.
And he dove really deep into it and gave a performance, that's for sure. But it's one of those things where, like, it doesn't feel like you truly know what you want with this movie. It doesn't feel like you truly want it to be a specific thing because you're afraid of leaving other stuff that you found interesting out of the film.
Yeah, he follows the timeline and throws in events just for whatever reason.
It feels like someone took a collage of Leonard Bernstein's life, cut out a few pieces here and there, like haphazardly, and then included it in the timeline.
They kind of, but I mean, most of it has Felicia in.
Felicia's like the one, she's like the main through line that you can kind of latch onto.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, Carey Mulligan is the best part of this movie.
Like, that's where I disagree.
Interesting.
I liked Bradley Cooper. I think I said that in the review that we did on it before. I gave more grace with the story. And now thinking about it, I'm like, man, that story is trash. But I still liked Bradley Cooper. I mean, even when he popped up on the Best Actor thing and some of the vignettes came out with him doing his thing, I was like, oh yeah, I mean, I really like the way that he portrayed him. And I don't know Leonard Bernstein though, so I have to take it that he did it accurately and just.
I think, I don't know, to me it didn't feel like it was grounded. It didn't feel like it was an actual human being at points. It just, and maybe that's kind of the point. Maybe that's sort of like what Leonard Bernstein was. It's like, oh, this guy is such a character that like he's totally unrelatable to anyone else.
Yeah, that's what a genius is.
But like, I don't know. It just felt like it wasn't genuine. It just felt like it wasn't from a performance of him necessarily wanting to do it because he cared about it. It just felt like he was doing it because he had put so much work into it that I'm just going to go all in on this, and people are either going to buy it or they're going to see right through it. And that's kind of how I feel with it.
Yeah, I think that Leonard, if I had to guess, he really liked the character and he did it as best he could to how he knew the character.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt that he genuinely cared about the dude.
Right. So that
like
means
what he was doing.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's why he would the character. I mean, when you talk about like Napoleon is unrelatable because he's a genius. I mean, when you talk about geniuses, they're unrelatable because we don't have that frame of mind that they have or their perspective on the world that they see it. So we have a hard time relating because it's easier to relate to someone when you have commonalities versus when you run into someone that you don't. But if you don't have commonalities, usually they're on one side of the spectrum or the other, you know? So like, I don't get along. I mean, I probably won't be able to relate to certain people that do a lot of negative things, but also like a billionaire that has their whole day set up. I don't know if I'd be able to relate to him either. So like when it came to the character, I really like seeing those people put in that light or that lens.
Sure. Because
now we get to see actually just them on screen, and I don't have to relate. I can actually just watch it like it's an experiment, you know? And that's where that's where we differ on it, you know?
And I think really it probably, to just put a point on it, the main problem with that in relation to just the focus of the film is the fact that there is none, right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
The fact, like, because if he was playing the character the same way, with the film having more of a focus on like the highs and lows, the progression of his life, or like something to where it was a clear and cohesive through line, I probably would have maybe liked it a little bit more. But then you get scenes where he's going, "Who left Snoopy in the vestibule?" or like, "Hey, let me make out with you in the hallway," or like him just doing like weird,
but that's probably what he did,
tangential shit. It's like, sure, right, maybe that's what he did, but like, it, to me, it's not an interesting movie. It's not an interesting film for me to get into, to care about what's going on.
No, I agree with that. And I think the lack of focus, I think that they took 20 different scenes and just piecemealed them together into this thing. And it's like, let's have a 6-minute skit about this, or a 7-minute sketch about that, you know? And there's nothing that really ties into it. I'd say the only through line is how eccentric he is and his personality and who he is and how no one can really relate to him, you know. But I think we're both on the same page though when we come to it. Doesn't make a great story.
No, like there are scenes in this that I really do like on an individual, like separate level.
Oh yeah.
But you put them all together and it doesn't equal out to anything.
Yeah, and that's why I really didn't care about Felicia, because I thought she was a plot device throughout this whole thing. And if you remove her from this and focus on like him, and he just had a wife in the background and was doing a whole bunch of different stuff, I think that would give us way more about how crazy and wild this guy was, as opposed to try to have her ground everything for us throughout the whole thing. Because I mean, their relationship just felt like a wet blanket.
So I wanted to make this comparison in our actual discussion, and I didn't bring it up, but I'm going to bring it up now.
Okay.
The movie Priscilla.
I haven't seen it.
It's sort of the good version of this movie, where the whole focus is entirely on Priscilla Presley and like her relationship progression with Elvis. And throughout it, like, you never leave her perspective. Like, she's always the one that we're seeing the movie through, but it really does give the movie a focus in that, like, we get to see not only like her change in character, but ancillarily Elvis's change in character as well through her, and like the different sort of like emotional states she's going through, like the different physical things that she's going through, like the pregnancy and blah blah blah. Like, there's different things that are happening to keep it interesting, but the focus is still on her. Whereas like this movie, it's like, yeah, a lot of the focus is on her, but like at the same time, a lot of the focus isn't on her.
No, they split it 50-50.
It's like their relationship, and then it's her, and then it's him, and it's like back and forth. Doesn't really feel like the ball's being played evenly in this film.
No.
And that's where I think a lot of the focus could have been narrowed down, as if it had just been a little bit more like a movie like Priscilla.
Yeah, and yes, I would agree with that. I think that this thing, if I wish it would have focused more on his life and maybe upbringing or a time frame in his life, and then he could have really dove into what he wanted to do, because Lenny really doesn't change throughout the whole thing, which is why I kind of found him fun, is because by the end of it, he's still the same guy he was in the beginning. So that's where some of the levity comes from and the funness, but like the whole relationship angle was crappy. But I mean, speaking on that too, Priscilla, like it's an ordinary gal going through this crazy event, you know, which is, it's almost like the inverse of what is going on with Lenny, but there's no focus.
This is kind of like Carey Mulligan is trying to match the energy of Leonard Bernstein and not being able to keep up.
Exactly. Well, that, and who cares about their fucking love story? Like, that's what, you know, I don't know. I never thinking about this, like, because every once in a while I'll pop up and more and more I just go blah, and then finally it's just like they never made me invest in what they were doing ever. You know, if they open up with him like sleeping with other dudes, it's like I don't even know where he's at now. He falls in love with her. I mean, like, is he gay? Is he not gay? Like, and what's she doing? Is she just a friend to him? Like, their friendship never felt genuine. You know, I mean, it just gets eroded over time. So
time was not kind for this movie to you, is what you're ultimately saying.
I think that this thing was like when we talked about May December should have replaced this one.
100% agree with you.
Yes, I don't think, and the only thing I would have gave this thing was Best Actor, and I think I felt, not to say he should have won it, I don't think that at all, but I think it was warranted for him to be up for it, and I think you probably feel the same way with Carey Mulligan.
Yeah, I mean, when you compare her to the other nominees, it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I still feel like she is the best part of the movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So we can kind of wrap this up. I think I gave this one a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
If I'm remembering right.
Yeah.
Just like, I really like the technical aspects. If you take the scenes and you isolate them by themselves, you have something interesting, but as a cohesive narrative, it just falls apart and doesn't work.
Yep. I had this originally at an 8 out of 10. I dropped it down to a 7 out of 10. Probably closer to a 6 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
Yeah, the film itself is fine. You know, this is an Oscar baity film. It's got a lot going for it, and like with the technical aspects of it. But yeah, in terms of the story, it's just like whatever. You know.
So we can move on to the next one. I think it's my turn.
Yep.
I'm gonna throw one out that we have not really discussed at all.
Okay.
Not even like outside this podcast, really. American Fiction.
Ooh, yeah. I want to hear your take on this thing.
I'm curious. I think this will be a good discussion.
Yeah.
So this is 2023, obviously. They're all 2023. Spoiler alert. This is a comedy drama film directed by Cord Jefferson, also screenplay by the same guy. Stars Jeffrey Wright as Dr. Thelonious Monk Ellison. He is a professor / author, and a lot of the struggle of this movie is him trying to resonate with the fact that a lot of African American authors sort of pander to certain audiences when it comes to writing their books, and he has the opinion that they're dumbing their material down to sell more copies. He writes a book as a joke called My Pathology with an F, and before he knows it, it actually turns out to be an unsung hit.
Panders. And it hits well.
And it hits hard, baby.
Yeah.
Hits like an ambulance. So this is a movie, like, and you know, I think that's pretty much it before we get into the discussion of the film. This is a film that I really wanted to enjoy more than I did.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that I hated this movie.
Whoa, you're saying you hated this movie?
No, that's not to say that I hated this movie.
Right, so you're saying you hated it.
Mac, you're putting words in my mouth, much like other characters in this movie do for Jeffrey Wright. But this is a film that I think is very flawed. I think that there's a lot of issues with the pacing, the screenplay, the sort of tone that it wants to go for overall. And there's a lot that I like about it, a lot that I don't like, but I'm curious where your thoughts are on it, and then we can kind of get into it.
I really enjoyed this film. This was a interesting take on sort of the African American culture and a look at. I think it's hard for me to look at some of the African American culture and think about how we can connect more. In this film, it touches on that, how we're kind of living in a white world, and there are certain markets set up, as they talk about with the books, with the pandering, and placing certain ideological views and pushing stigmatism for the African American culture and African Americans into having people that, I mean, if you grew up in a whole neighborhood with all white people, if all you saw were these certain types of films, that's what you'd have to think, how a African American person is. And I think we did talk about how he thinks that you have to pander a little bit to the audience. I also think that he struggles with being an African American author and not having anyone recognize his work because he is of that ilk,
Yes.
But it also kind of I also look at it too of, well, if you were a white author, would your book sell anymore? That just popped up into my head. But no, I really like that some of the things that they touch on and some of the jokes that they go for and some of the cultural references or jokes that they put into this thing. There was a little bit hard of a time kind of pinpointing exactly what I ultimately thought of the film. And when I say that, it's mostly in terms of you have Issa Rae, who writes a book. So, I mean, the thing kind of gets set up. He goes into like this convention for him to talk with people. No one shows up to his booth. So he goes and checks out Issa Rae, talk about her book. And I don't remember what it was called. And she reads off this, like some script within the book. And it's like, totally, in the ghetto, like just,
it's very like stereotypical urban, kind of like very I want to be very careful with my words, but I'll just leave it at that.
No, I mean, it is. I mean, when I was listening to it, I was kind of thinking about Muskegon. I mean, that's just, it's some of the dialect that has and some of the way that you communicate.
It feels like what a white person would write a black impoverished neighborhood to sound like.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds like that.
Yeah, and he's like, man, this is wrong, And I think he says, he thinks that she's part of the reason why there's some propagation towards this belief of how
it's perpetuating stereotypes.
Yeah, and how African Americans are viewed. And there's some conversations along the way and some discoveries of, what's it mean in the grand scheme of things? Are we making towards a better way? And ultimately at the end of the day, if we're making money off people, I mean, it's no different than anyone else doing it. So I'm curious, what did you have issues with or what you didn't like? Because I mean, I saw this and enjoyed it.
My biggest issue with this was the fact that it had both of a focus on him as a writer, as an author, making this book, putting it out into the world, and it's starting as a joke, and then it snowballs into a
movie rights,
right? Something that like is out of his control, right?
Oh yeah,
is like suffering from success sort of thing, which I do genuinely like, and that's what the movie is marketed as. And then you watch the movie, and then there's also this really heavily involved plot with him and his family. Well, and I didn't necessarily hate it, but I just felt like we spend a lot of time with him and his family, his sister. And then, should we go into spoilers for American Fiction?
Yeah, we can, because I think that this is one we're talking about, because I like that they did that, and I got a belief on why they did it that way.
So,
spoilers.
My big issue is, it feels like a cascade of things happening to him on a family level, where he goes and sees his sister, and then his sister dies, and then he goes and sees his mom, and then his mom gets diagnosed with dementia. And then there's all this shit happening with him and his brother, and like he has a struggle with his love life, blah, blah, blah. It feels like all this stuff that's happening to him it doesn't feel like it's integrated very well with the plot of him trying to figure out this book situation. It feels like they're almost two entirely separate struggles that never really fully feel like they cohesively meet with each other. The most you really get is when his girlfriend picks the book up and then they get into a fight and then they sort of break up over it. And that's the most that it ever really kind of gets to. Whereas like everything else, it kind of feels separate in that the movie markets itself as, oh, you're going to be interested because of the writer angle, because of the author angle. And then you get hit with the family stuff. It's like, okay, where is this going? This is kind of an interesting dynamic. And then I feel like it never really fully goes anywhere with it.
So the way I took it was that they were looking at this African-American family, what you'd probably look at as a success story, like you would as most like white families, so you have this dad, the dad that was what do you call that, adulterous, he was cheating on his wife. You got these kids that are all successful in their own rights, and they all have the family has a struggle like you probably have within any American family, not necessarily white or black, but you get that dynamic of looking at this normal family, if you will, and success. I kind of wish that they weren't as successful, but I mean, I think they were playing it up as like a black, or African American family that had some success with what was going on and paying bills. And he is now writing this book that he is so pissed off that he does a whole joke on the fact that this is what people want and this is what people think, that I will just write this book and I'm going to stick it to them and say ha ha ha. And he has this internal struggle because he doesn't want to do that. So now he's got conflicting ideologies, but you also have the fact that he probably should continue with this book to help the family out. And
that's kind of where like a lot of the road bumps come up for me, because you get the idea of like, okay, they are well off, but then he has to care for his mother, and then the nursing home bills are really extremely high. So I thought to myself, oh, he's going to have to write a pandering book and sink to the levels of someone that he doesn't like to pay for his
but I don't think he did it he didn't do it to do it.
No, he didn't. Well, it feels like he kind of did do it to do it.
Well, no, because he doesn't want the thing to sell. He keeps telling his editor.
No, he did it as a joke.
Right.
Like he does it as like a farce. Like, oh, haha, this is fucking stupid, but I'm actually going to send it for the lulz. When really, I don't know. I feel like they had an avenue to where it could have tied back into the family thing of like, oh, I'm writing this not because I want to, but because I have to, because it's the only way I'll make money as a black author.
Right, which is that's what he eventually has to get to.
Eventually, but I don't know. It still kind of feels like he just does it as purely just a joke, and then it happens to line up with him making money from it and then being able to support his mom. It's like, I don't know. It feels kind of janky to me.
Conflicting ideology with, I don't want to do this because I'm a proud black man, and I see the problems with the world, and this is one of them. And now I'm becoming a problem. But I also have my family that I need to take care of, that I'm now conflicted with the events that are going on, because I can either keep selling this, making money off, what I think is wrongful injustice to provide for my family, or I can go about it the right way, which is what I've always done, and we can continue to struggle. And I think that's where Jeffrey Wright this whole time, throughout the whole film, struggles with his connection. But he also, and that's where some of the things that I didn't necessarily, I think, I don't know what the through line was, because Sterling K. Brown, there's some times where he's talking to him and it's like, you need to let people into your life.
Right. And
I think some of that was lost on me a little bit on how does this play up with him still helping his family and dealing with the book. But I think it was just like understanding what you can do in life and how you can keep progressing, because he had the conversation with Issa Rae, and he goes, well, how is this book any different than your book? And she gets really offended. And then he goes, well, what are you doing? Like, don't you find that wrong? And she's like, that's where the market takes me. That's how I make money, and it's that like, all right, is this what we need to continue to keep doing to perpetuate this belief in order to keep getting by, or do we take a stand? Right. And I don't know if there was a conclusion at the end of the film if he went one way or another with it.
Right. And I mean, I do enjoy that stuff. I think that stuff is interesting in of itself. My biggest issue is that I feel like they're just not integrated well enough. I feel like there's two different things going on that they don't feel like they mesh well with one another, where like you almost have like two separate movies, where like one movie he's dealing with his family issues and how he just can't connect with that many people, that he struggles on a human based level to sometimes just not be an asshole for the sake of being right. Whereas the other storyline is, you know, it's touching on all those things you said about like him struggling as a black author, where he wants the quality of his books to rise above what is expected of him because of his race. Like, I find those two things very interesting. I don't know. I feel like they just don't mesh together to me all that well.
I think it creates a very conflicted character.
Sure.
I mean, that's where I get at, because I mean, it'd be the same guy that I don't want to sell drugs or keep being a drug dealer, but I have to sell drugs to support my family. I mean, like it puts you in a really tight vestibule,
right?
You know,
where Snoopy was left.
Yes, you know, and it creates this. You know, I think there's a lot of different things weighing on you that they tried to put into this film, and some of them, well, most of them for me hit. Some of them didn't, and I still don't know where I left off with this thing on. Did he make the right choice? Did he not make the right choice? And I think at the end of the day, it's progress. It's where we're at as a society, and that's kind of where they wanted to leave the film at. Is this thing doesn't really leave a resounding right or wrong answer. You know, it's mostly just, you know, you have to do what you have to do to survive.
That is one thing I agree with you 100%, is that I really do like his character.
Yeah.
And I like how Jeffrey Wright portrays him.
Yeah.
I think that he is great, and I think that as far as like a character goes, he's one of the most interesting, I think, out of all the movies that we're discussing in this
Yeah, I
lineup.
wanted him to win Best Actor.
I wouldn't have been sad. I really do think that he's really great in this movie, genuinely.
He was awesome.
Like, you know, my issues with the screenplay aside, I think that he does a really good balance of like someone who's conflicted with trying to be true to himself, but also trying to be a little bit aware of the situations he's in which people tell him like, hey, you're kind of being a dick right now. Like, you're kind of being an asshole.
Well, and I talked about this with Jasmine because me and her went and saw it, and one of the things that I think there's a disconnect between is, you know, an African American male versus a white male, and not to say that everyone comes from you know, one side of the street or the other, but there is more things that happen in African American male's life in terms of getting to where he's at with external factors weighing on you, that it's hard for me to see or fathom, because I mean, I don't have to go into a room and be nervous about walking into a room because there's gonna be a bunch of white people there. I can immediately relate because we're all white, and I think that was some of what's going on in this thing. Is they talked about him not letting people in, not absorbing love, and they have the angle with the dad, and he loved his dad, but he didn't know his dad cheated on his mom. So you get to all that, but then
there's just a general level of disconnect with his character with most everyone in this movie.
Yeah, but I think I think none of the males in this film really, like Sterling K. Brown doesn't connect with anyone. You know, like a lot of the African American males in this don't connect with anyone, and I think they try to use that family and the upbringing and how we've gotten to where we're at, and that's why I think they wanted to go with a successful family so that there isn't any of that stereotype or you know, going on where you can see it as a white family. But I think they were still playing up to some of that, and they addressed it even when they were sitting down at the very end of the wedding. You know, and Sterling K. Brown kind of gives them the whole spiel on, you know, you got to just accept love, man. Like, you know, and then they get into the dad angle of it, and how he goes, you know, you love Dad. You didn't know that he did this, but he at least saw you for you. He never got to know me for me. And, you know, there's a lot of confliction and a lot of I guess you say love. You know, but there's a lot of disconnection there, and I think that it just depends, and it does go with upbringing and family and who you are and who you get to get raised by. And I think they were trying to play into that along with other things going on, and this to me would be a movie I got to watch again to see if I pick up on more on it.
Sure.
You know,
100%. And maybe that's sort of what I need to do as well. Just going back to like because there are a lot of elements about this movie that I do like. But then there's the script, and then there's some of the technical elements that I thought were, I don't know, kind of substandard, kind of bland, very straightforward. Like,
yeah, this is. I mean,
it's cinematography wise, the movie's not all that dynamic. And then I really could not get behind a lot of the music going on in this movie.
Oh, really? I love the music in this.
To me, it was kind of repetitive and overstayed its welcome. But
no, I mean, I like the jazz. I like that it felt like they used a lot of that culture and brought it into the film.
Sure. I don't know. I felt like they used the same track a lot of the time over and over again. It's like, okay, I like this music, but can we get a little bit of in the way of variety?
You're not really big on the jazz, huh?
I mean, don't talk to Gideon. He does not like jazz.
Yeah.
I enjoy jazz. It's just,
you don't have to like it.
It's just the overstimulation, baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, this is a movie where like a lot of it I enjoy, but there's just so much about it that for me bogs it down.
Yeah, I think I'd see it in a different light.
Sure.
So I liked it. I liked the score. I liked how peppy this thing was. I mean, cinematography was, here or there. But when it actually came down to talking about some issues and some things that go on in society, like one of the things that made me laugh really hard is he's in this hotel and he puts on WGN. And it's like Black History Month. We're going to show you all of these, movies that really resemble the African American culture. And it's like
it's a bunch of gang shit.
Gangs. You got Precious. Being 15 with the kid.
The Blind Side.
Slavery. The Blind Side. Like, it was like a lot of things where it's like we're moving past this. We need to move past this.
It's like this is moving backwards. We're not making any progress with this.
This is what we're showing across America. And
Sure.
how we're perpetuating this culture. So, I think it had a voice in what it was trying to say. And, for me at least, I want to check it out. I will probably watch this one again.
Sure.
So me and Jasmine had a pretty good conversation on it. And I was still like, the ending to me was just a little lost. I was like, I don't know what resolution he came to. And I don't know. I think that was the point.
Right. One thing I really do like about this movie, it made me laugh quite a bit. It is just genuinely funny in a lot of moments.
Yeah.
Specifically, like with his dry sense of humor and the way Jeffrey Wright's playing this character.
Sterling, I like Sterling. I don't know why he got nominated, but I like Sterling K. Brown.
He was good, yeah. I don't know if nomination worthy, but like, as far as like performances in this movie specifically, it's like, yes, he stands out and he makes it better when he appears.
Yes.
Was there anything else we wanted to discuss with American Fiction?
No, that's all. That's really all I got.
Who's going first in this?
I go first. You brought it up, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I have this. Let me double check here. So I think I know what I gave it, but I just want to make sure while I am checking this out. Good thing that these movies come up. I got this as a 9 out of 10.
Nice.
Yeah. Like I said, I enjoyed this quite a bit. There's a lot of tongue-in-cheek jokes in here. There's a lot of subtle humor too. Like everyone calls him Monk. Everyone that's like white calls him Monk, or they call him by his Stieg.
Yeah, his pen name.
Yeah, pseudonym, right?
Mm-hmm.
But and then the black security officer calls him Thelonious. Calls him by his proper name. So I mean, I think that there's a bunch of tongue-in-cheek stuff in here, and seeing some of the differences that really made me laugh. Playing up some of the people too that are incorporated in his life, like when he changes the book name, that made me laugh. And I just thought it's a really fun film, and I enjoyed it.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. This is a 6 out of 10 for me.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's a lot I like about it, a lot that I think kind of holds it back from it being a very solid, focused, cohesive movie. Like I said, maybe if I watch it again, I'll get more out of it. But there's just a level of disconnect that I had with the way that the script played out that I just could not get behind. That being said, Jeffrey Wright is great in it, and I wouldn't have been unhappy if he won Best Performance.
Yeah, he was plus 8,000 to win, so.
Yeah. I think it's your turn. Pick. Yes.
All right. So let's see. What number was that? The fifth one?
That was the fifth one. We're halfway through.
Shit.
I know. We are crawling towards the finish line.
Let's do another quick one. Let's do Barbie.
Good call.
Let's do Barbie.
All right.
Oh wow, I don't know if I agree with that. Barbie, another 2023 film written or directed by Greta Gerwig, written by Greta Gerwig and her lover, Noah Baumbach.
Noah Baumbach, who, fun fact, wrote the screenplay for Madagascar 3.
Yeah, I thought that was a fun fact.
It's very fun.
Starring Margot Robbie as the titular Barbie, Ryan Gosling as Ken. Oh, Issa Rae again. Man, that's 2 films for her as Barbie. Kate McKinnon as Barbie. Alexander Shipp as Barbie. A whole bunch of Barbies in this, not to sound misogynistic. Dua Lipa played Barbie. And essentially, is it existential? Whatever. Barbie goes into the real world to find out who Barbie is and what her plot in life is and what she's supposed to do. Yeah, we've talked about this on a previous episode, Barbenheimer.
Yep.
I don't know if we called it that.
I did not title it that.
Okay.
I just wanted, just the titles of both movies in the title of the video.
Yes.
Or the episode, I should say.
Yeah, so
I think I put it in the description.
Barbenheimer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the closest we get to it being like published.
Just a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We gotta feed into the meme.
Yeah. It was it was a big time in the summer when these 2 films came out, same opening weekend. I don't think anyone thought Barbie was gonna be this gigantic bombshell of a movie.
It was the highest grossing film of 2023.
Which is not shocking to me. This thing is poppy. It's got very witty dialogue. When we talk about focus and concise message, this I think has it. I do think there are bigger ideologies or themes that play throughout this in terms of, what's my purpose, what's my role, what can I do in life, and taking it from a action figure or a Barbie, I guess. I don't know if they're called that. Dolls. I don't want to be whatever. We call that. And putting it into a real life event and then bringing us back into Barbie world. So I think, we've talked about this. I don't think that this has really changed for me at all in my way of viewing it.
Me neither.
I really I do like the message, and I definitely think that this is a good film for women. I think that there's some punches being thrown at systematic, gentrification,
misogyny.
Misogyny. I don't. Oppression seems like a big word, but
oppression's
women's
appropriate.
rights.
Yeah,
but I think they do it in enough of a tongue-in-cheek way where they're able to get their point across in a very chivalrous manner.
I think the biggest thing with this movie that I think we can start the discussion is, since it came out, the cultural impact of it, because obviously it made all this money. Obviously it's super popular, but also it helps with the fact that when you have a well-made, focused, well-crafted movie like this, where the humor is almost nonstop, it's very well written, very tongue-in-cheek, very self-aware. I think that helps give this movie wheels in terms of the longevity, because out of a lot of the lineup for these Best Picture movies, I like most of them genuinely. Yeah. I think a lot of them are just really well made films. I don't know if all of them are going to have as much of a long lasting cultural impact as this movie does. Because there's so much, because like I said, it made all the money in the world. Yeah. And not only that, but it's got the appeal of both men and women enjoying this movie. It's got the songs, which are catchy and stick in your head, and it's got the performances from both Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling that you just remember because of how funny they are. Yeah.
I mean, this thing's got had a lot going for it, and I don't know, Best Picture winner, I don't know if I see it there, but
this to me felt like sort of the Top Gun Maverick of this year, where it's they pick the popular film that is genuinely well regarded by both critics and audiences, but probably isn't going to win.
It had more going than Top Gun. I think there's more long-standing.
I think I agree. I'd have to rewatch Top Gun. Yeah.
Well, Top Gun Tom Cruise is a fighter pilot.
Well, yeah, in terms of themes and things to think about, it has more going for it.
I think that this is a women's voice movie that kind of comes out, and like we said, I mean, there's a lot of things that are going for it, but there is a through line with it, and I think it was delivered In terms of making a difference, I don't know.
Right.
Top Gun, but I do agree. I mean, when you talk about poppy fun, got the music, got performances in it, technical aspects, like where it stands out above all else in terms of being a movie.
Yeah.
And this is really funny too, because you wouldn't think about Barbie being like a very, I don't want to say action-filled movie, but enough to make it feel like it's a movie.
Here's my question for you that I want to pose.
Okay.
Do you think the meme helped perpetuate this into making $1 billion?
I don't know. I don't really. Memes are like a big deal, but there's two ways about doing it. I mean, one, any advertising is good advertising.
Like,
right?
do you think if the meme didn't exist, it would still have made $1 billion?
I don't.
It's hard to say.
I don't know, but I think that it really played up the marketing campaign. But like,
yes.
To say that this thing would be anything less, I have no idea. But this thing I knew about Barbie from, when did this come out? In July, I want to say?
July 21st.
Yeah. So, I mean, I knew about Barbie in March.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm a little bit more involved with movies than the average moviegoer.
Some of the appeal too that I remember even before all the Barbenheimer stuff was the fact that people were just trying to figure out what this movie was.
Yeah.
Because I remember like the screenshots would come out and like you'd have an image of like Margot Robbie giant in the desert, kind of like an homage to 2001 sort of thing.
Yep.
And then like pictures of Ryan Gosling as Ken came out and you found out that the movie was rated PG-13 and you're like, what exactly is this? Like just the general intrigue from people finding out the mystery of this film as it was coming out.
That's why I'm not sure if the meme I would say it perpetuated it. I don't think that you could say anything less than it, but I also, to me, there's that like, it helps push it in the right direction in terms of getting the name out, but also memes can be pretty degrading and humorous and slanderous, so it's almost like people could see that and be like, that's going to be a giant pile of shit and not want to see it.
Probably assume that even if the meme wasn't a thing, the movie still would have been a big hit and made a ton of money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. $1 billion, I'm not sure. That the meme could have pushed it the next 100 million over the mark. I have no idea, but I would say it's fair to assume that this thing would have been just as successful as it is now. And once you hit a certain point in making money, it probably doesn't matter, what else helped to get there. I would say if you're just clipping the peak, then I would say for sure that thing helped out. But like, I think this thing would have went over the peak without the meme, but I don't know if it would have made $1 billion. I have no idea.
Yeah. I'm in the same ballpark.
Yeah. Memes to me can go one of two ways. You can hamper your campaign.
Like with Madam Web?
Yeah, like Madam Web.
Or Morbius, where Sony was bullied into thinking that people actually wanted to see the movie, so then they re-released it and it made $2,000 over the weekend.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, gets the meme shit out of it, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, people like this. It's like, no, it's Wayne's World. They're making fun of you.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that people are intrigued. They just want to be on the laugh.
Yeah. This movie is very much laughing with you, and I think that helps to give it the legacy that it will have.
Yes.
I think I gave this one a 8 out of 10. I think I was pretty solid on it, and I still say that that's where I'm at today.
Nice. So yeah, no, I have it as a 9 out of 10. There could be a time if I throw it back on it slips down to an 8 out of 10. But right now, I mean, in terms of everything that I wanted to when I went and saw this thing, it hit on it and then some. So I'm going to leave this as a 9 out of 10 for right now.
Cool. I think it's my turn. Well, going off the back of Barbie, we might as well get another familiar face out of the way with Oppenheimer.
Yes.
So this is also going to be a quick discussion. Let me just look up some info on this bad boy. So Oppenheimer, biographical war film. I don't know if I'd say it's a war film necessarily. Directed by Christopher Nolan, written by Christopher Nolan. Excuse me. It just snuck out there. I'm sorry. I know. I just dropped a bomb on mic. And it stars Cillian Murphy as J. Robert Oppenheimer and kind of chronicles in the span of 3 hours his beginnings as a scientist into his involvement with the Manhattan Project and the sort of name he makes for himself as the father of the atom bomb.
Yes.
And sort of the inner workings of that, the effects before and after the creation of the atomic bomb, sort of like the different court hearings and him being put on trial in front of different law enforcement and things like that. It kind of just delves into the more nitty-gritty aspects too of the ethical dilemma of making something that could literally destroy the entire planet.
Yeah, they did. So I watched this the second time.
I've seen this movie 2 times. I saw it in IMAX the first time, and then I saw it in a normal theater because Megan didn't get to see it with us.
Oh, yeah, I watched it on Peacock. The writing in this thing is fantastic. I thought this should have been at best adapted.
I love. You said the ending of this?
The writing.
Oh, the writing. Okay,
Yeah,
I thought you said the ending because I agree. I really do like how this ends.
There's one scene in particular I like, and then there's one scene that I really hate.
Well, we'll touch on it.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree. The writing is really great, and I think it's probably one of Nolan's best written movies in quite some time.
Sam's got his opinions on it. I don't see eye to eye with him on stuff. There are a couple things I do. And
not an officially sanctioned opinion.
Yeah, but the character introductions I think were really weak, and
sure.
On a second viewing, it really helps out. But on the first viewing, watching it, keeping up with the names is just...
It's a struggle.
God awful.
Right? That's the biggest thing that I think I had going against this movie, too, is not being able to follow a through line of just who these people are and what's happening with them.
Yes.
Because characters will say something about someone else, and you're supposed to infer how to feel about that in the situation based on how the characters are reacting, but then you're like...
Well, it's also,
wait, who's this guy again that they're talking about?
There's political drama in this, and it's the politics behind people's actions that are affecting him. So you'll talk about these people on the side about how they did something off screen that we don't see, but are impacting him with this hearing going on, and it doesn't do a great job on building up the tension or bringing it down, and that's, I think, one of the problems I had with it, because when things happen and you're dealing with the politics and these backroom dealings and conversations and everyone, putting their own agenda up without having something to really firmly attach yourself with on, that character said that, it makes it difficult to kind of keep up with.
It's hard to be tangential about it
when
there's nothing really tangible for us to grab onto in those moments. It's like there's the first time you see this movie, there's a level of disconnect with just trying to figure out what they're talking about and who they're talking about in relation to these events. And it, like you said, it helps when you watch it a second time, because then you're able to better keep track of all this stuff. And it's like, I understand why he's scared of Casey Affleck in this scene now.
Yeah.
But like the first time you watch it, it's like, I get it. This is effective. I love the acting and I love the way this is being filmed and written, but like, I still don't get it.
Yeah.
And not to say it makes you feel stupid, but the movie, like you said, it just rapid fire goes through all these things that you're kind of expected to keep up with.
The best analogy I got is you're a new student in a high school and you're thrust in after 3 months of the school year going on. You meet one friend and all of a sudden he's telling you about the gossip between 4 other groups of people going on and how they're all impacting the final outcome of the football game in week 7. It's kind of hard to keep up with. Larry did this to Joe, who did this with Katie, and now she's doing talking about so-and-so to Jeff. Awesome. I don't know who these people are, and it's like, that's
exactly.
And then you see the final score, and it's like, I guess that kind of makes sense. And it's not to say you're an idiot. It's just, it's very hard to keep up with. So, if you don't go into this thing with that notion of I am listening to everyone's name, I am paying attention to what everyone says the moment they do it, because he really doesn't slow down for you.
No, he doesn't. It's a lot of like what you said. It's like, this guy said this scientist doesn't endorse you, but we might get him later on. This scientist that was in the movie before, it's like, we're reaching out communications with him. He might be on board for the Manhattan Project. By the way, we made something that might destroy the world.
Yeah.
It's a lot of individual moments of this has heavy ethical kind of existential issues that it's touching on. And then it's mired with all this here's a list of names that you might need
Yes,
in order to keep up.
If you can grasp the overall overarching theme about what is going on, because like the second time I watched this was, and I knew a little bit more going into it. You know, they called him the modern day Prometheus, and they do that clip right at the beginning about what Prometheus did to the world, right? Or then he destroyed God, or
he introduced fire to humanity, and as punishment, the gods sent him up a mountain to have his spleen ripped out by a giant bird every single day, where it would then regrow, and then it would continue on in eternity.
Okay. So that's even a nicer look into how he's feeling. Yeah, but what the other thing that I thought was funny is that the father of the atomic bomb, when you talk about like revelations in science over the last 80 years, number one, right?
I mean, it's an achievement. It's an achievement that
years.
shouldn't be ignored and should be looked at with a lot of respect.
Yeah, and achievement, but I'm saying like in terms of changing the world, like there's not a lot of titles that gets.
Exactly.
Changing the world,
changing the face of how we operate as a species.
Yeah, like you might have that within your town, your country, your state, but like this is affecting everyone. We just upped the game. This happened within 80 years.
Yeah.
And I said the crazy thing, and this is why I think that he wanted to have this voice out there, was I don't know if not a lot of people, I think if you ran into the streets, if you said, what'd Robert J. Oppenheimer do? They'd probably say, well, he was part of the Manhattan Project. He was on the bomb. I mean, for a long time, I thought Einstein built the bomb, and you've got this guy that changed the world, and he is not a common name that anyone associates. And it goes to show you what, I don't know who Robert Downey Jr. played in the thing, but
Louis Strauss.
Yeah. And his goal was to eliminate him from the history books. And it's crazy because, I mean, essentially he did.
Yeah.
And, so like when you view it at that angle, it's a very, to me, prolific, event that occurs, and
that's very eye-opening.
Yeah, that we're watching go out, and we get to see it actually how it got done. And I find it fascinating because I always I talked about geniuses. He's a genius, and these people, they it's not like they just come around the corner. And you have a guy that had the biggest scientific change in the world that we've seen in the last 80 years, and yet he might be a trivia question, which is insane to me,
Right. It's a lot of what this movie does also is it kind of brings Oppenheimer into the public consciousness as well, of like people just thinking about more of like him and his life, and also just the implications of nuclear bombs existing.
Yes.
And
yeah.
That's why I really like the ending of this, kind of touching on earlier, is that like it ends on that music note and like the wonderful score of like him just staring blankly as he ponders the idea that he literally could have just made it possible for us to extinct ourselves.
But he really doesn't know what. That's the other thing I like that and I know we're getting kind of close to wrapping this up, but that's another element that I liked about this, that is he is, when you think about it, he's a kid that's building a rocket ship out in the backyard, doesn't know how to build it, but he's going to get there. And that's one of the foundations of man, is that we're always exploring and testing our boundaries and pushing to the next level. And as he's going through it, I don't know if he ever stopped to think about if it was right or wrong. It was just like, hey, we're going to make a big change here. And all of a sudden it's here. And now you have to live with the consequences of what you've done.
Well, it's like, it's understandable that like he's not doing this out of any sort of maliciousness or fervor or any sort of like passion for the war. He's doing it for the passion of science, because this movie does such a good job of portraying him as like such a big naive dork that he didn't see the greater implications of what he had done until it was too late.
Yes, by the time, I mean, that's one of the best scenes in the film is when he finally has that realization, and it's surreal to him.
Yeah,
which I think it would be, because like it's
a great scene,
dude. People go through and you do something stupid and you have a surreal moment where it's out of body. And it's like, I can't believe I just said that, and you're like, oh shit, like what's gonna happen with and it might be within 20 people that it's like, oh my god, he just changed the fucking world, like. I couldn't imagine doing something to that extent and then having to think about the consequences that could come from it. Mm-hmm. And that's what that was his mission afterwards, that Louis Strauss took to offense. And so that's where you get into the political drama of all this stuff. But
sure.
Yeah, no, there was a scene towards the end that I just really could care less for. And the Strauss character was, Downey did a great job with it. I don't like how Nolan filmed it. I'll say that. Interesting.
We should kind of move to the next movie. Was there any other thing you wanted to touch on with this movie?
Nope.
So I think we can go to the next one after we give our ratings.
Yes.
I think you're going.
Yes. Yeah. I have this as a 9 out of 10.
Yes, that's what I have it as well.
Yep.
And if I rewatch it, it might go up, might go down. I'm very fluid on how I feel about it at the moment because it's been a while since I've seen it. But from what my memory serves and how I think about this movie, it still resonates very positively with me. So
yeah, I don't know about. I did not want to see it win. I think it's just because I'm like counterculture sometimes, where it's like this wasn't the best film, but out of all 10 films, I didn't have a staple on this is the one.
You weren't like backed into one specific corner.
Yeah. So I mean,
you just knew you weren't in Oppenheimer's corner.
Dude, if Barbie got the same traction that Oppenheimer did, I might be like, no, Barbie doesn't deserve it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I think when I keep saying, at least for me, it wasn't that strong of a year. It was a strong year, just not with one film that sat with me that will sit above all else.
For sure. I think it's your turn to pick.
All right.
So we got 3 more to go. All of them movies we haven't discussed yet.
All right. Let's do Poor Things.
I was hoping you'd pick Poor Things.
Yes. Let's do Poor Things.
That's one that I definitely want to talk about quite a bit.
Yeah. Poor Things. Directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. Written by Tony McNamara and Isildur Gray. No, based on the novel by
Alasdair Gray.
Alasdair Gray. Starring Best Actress winner Emma Stone as Bella Baxter.
Woo!
Mark Ruffalo as Duncan Wedderburn. Willem Dafoe as God. Rami Youssef as Max McCandless. And then a whole bunch of people that just kind of get thrown into her life. And I don't know do I read the synopsis? I
mean, what kind of synopsis is there to give of this movie?
The film is essentially it's a reanimation film.
Kind of a Frankenstein-esque.
I think, yeah, and it takes kind of a nature versus nurture element to it. There's a lot of themes strewn into this thing. Anyways, Bella is reanimated, and we kind of see her as she goes through her life, a journey into becoming the woman that she's going to become. Raised and impacted by all these different men in her life that have certain ideological traits that they're pushing on her as to who she should become. Mm-hmm. I would say outside of God, as God's the only one, Godwin Baxter, she calls him God, as he's doing it specifically for experimental reasons, and he is jotting down to see what will happen as she's imprinted on by all these different things. So Max McCandless is God's assistant. He comes in and he is set to be wed to Bella, and then she runs into Duncan Wedderburn, who kind of takes her on this journey, and we get to see Bella become the woman that she's going to become.
Yep. This is one of the more talked about movies in this lineup. Yes. One of the ones that was predicted to win a lot of the awards that Oppenheimer probably wasn't going to win, and people were right. I think this won 4
probably
Academy Awards. It won production design. It won 5 of them. Stone winning Best Actress. Yeah, I can't look at the list right now.
It's all right.
But it won a handful, basically.
Yeah.
And my cat is even up in arms about it, too. Wow, crazy. She thought it was supposed to go to Barbie, Piper.
Yeah.
This
This movie, beautifully shot, well done. Cinematography is fantastic.
Visually is one of the best movies that came out last year.
Yeah, it keeps you engaged with all the different sets, costumes, and frameworks that's going on with this. The subject matter too is interesting as well. As we get to go through the life with Bella. Mm-hmm. Should we do spoilers on this one?
Let's do spoilers with this because I feel like this is a movie that's going to be hard to discuss without getting into the nitty gritty. So,
spoilers.
Bella is she is the body of a woman who committed suicide while pregnant, and then Willem Dafoe took the brain of the fetus and put it into the body of the woman. So the beginning of the movie, it starts out with Emma Stone literally acting like an infant. She's acting like a baby. Yep. And as the film progresses, she sort of ages into her body where she matures more and more, starts to learn more about like how the world works, how sex works, how different patriarchal elements work throughout the society that she lives in, through the lens of this very like sort of mosaic visual kind of like fluid, almost liminal set.
Yeah,
that's a part of the film, and a lot of it obviously touching on themes of like feminism and what it means to be a woman and like making your own decisions versus like people who want to make decisions for you. And there's a lot about this movie that I really dig. Just on a technical level, it's great. I think that the themes it touches on are really well written and well thought out. I love the humor of this. It's almost like that perfect balance of like uncomfortable humor that you get mixed with some really genuinely funny performances from Emma Stone and Willem Dafoe. And I really do like Mark Ruffalo in this movie quite a bit. There's just an overall abundance of things that I really do enjoy about this movie. It's not like perfect. There's a lot of things about it that I think bog it down, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it, especially since you literally just watched it a few days ago, right?
I did, and I didn't know what to expect. I mean, all of a sudden, it's kind of wild. It was, Yorgos has got he's got a different take on society, at least how things happen in society, and if we lived in this parallel universe with most of the rules written, but we're going to change up some of the rules. I don't think I really started vibing with this movie until, weirdly enough, she got to about France. She became a sex worker.
Okay. Interesting. See, that's interesting because that's kind of where the movie starts to lose me a little bit.
Really?
Yeah. But continue. We can get into it.
I didn't really pick up on a lot of the themes. I'm thinking, well, one, I was just disturbed by the baby brain. And
naturally,
seeing, as we're going, well, it wasn't necessarily the reanimation. It was like, all right, like I've got to think that this isn't Emma Stone and that this is a child learning. But also the natural progression is, it's accelerated by how much she's picking up on things.
Right.
And I wasn't channeling how men were acting on her life and choosing things for her. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm saying. It was once I got to about France and she started doing the sex work, it was, she's making the decision to use her body to make a profit. And Duncan doesn't have a say on what she does or doesn't do, mm-hmm. And then we get to see kind of how, and then it really went back into, now I can really view on what the ideas are or what, as a guy, what we do with females, and kind of that relationship that we have, that the back and forth and how women maybe are viewed. And that's when I started seeing a lot of it started clicking or resonating. It was still peculiar is a word.
Sure.
And then, I think some of it is grandiose, are doing things to make audiences feel uncomfortable. It felt, I'm losing, I can't think of the word here, but he just dipped into the well one too many times. And
I kind of agree with you. I think with slightly different aspects, but continue.
No, I mean that's I think that this thing probably could have been trimmed down by 15 to 20 minutes and still gotten the same point across.
I 100% agree with you.
Yes.
There's a lot about this movie that I like in terms of theme and the overall things that it's trying to touch on.
Yes.
That being said, a lot of it is her just figuring things out, what it means to be a woman, both emotionally, mentally, and physically, with the many different sex scenes that are going on in this movie. Not that I have a problem with them, but to me, and this is kind of where it gets into like the movie sort of loses me once it gets to France.
Yeah.
I get the point that she's becoming her own woman and turning into all these different, like, she's exploring herself.
Yeah.
And it's exploring who you are as a person, just not just physically, but like all these different things. But like the different scenes of her just engaging in all these acts is it kind of runs a little stale. And I'm like the last person to call myself a prude because, you know, I like weird shit. I like it when movies take risks. I mean, I love movies like Beau is Afraid.
Oh, yeah.
But when it's something where, like you said, the point of it is, watch what she's becoming. Watch her take her own agency and, like, do these things on her own. Like, learn about these different things. It's like, okay, that's all well and good. And some of those scenes are even just funny on their own.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I understand what you're doing. I don't need any more of that to be driven to a point for me.
Yes.
Like, I get it.
Yep.
Right?
That's 100%. That's where I'm at with you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I'm not saying that France was like when it turned around for me. I'm just saying that's when it started clicking.
That's when you started understanding what it was going
but
for.
Some of the scenes that were still occurring, I'm like, I feel like he's... I don't like... That's why I don't like torture porn. You know?
Oh, that's why you don't like it.
Well, I'm like, it's stale. It's how many, like Eli Roth, like how many different ways can we really make someone uncomfortable seeing the human body get destroyed?
Mac watches Human Centipede 2 and goes, ugh.
Yeah, like I don't. Well, I do. It runs
big old
dry.
yawn through it.
It runs dry with me, and it's like we're doing this, and that's why a lot of people do like those movies, though.
You want to know how I watch that movie? I don't.
Exactly.
I just don't because
like, hey,
I
let's
don't
watch
like that.
Hostel, and it's like I'm good. I don't need that. I'm not curious about how many get. You know, it's the same with her. It's like when she got into the brothel, like I'm good. Like you can show me a couple clips, you can have a couple of these ideologies or some of her philosophical quandaries pop up with, you know, who am I? How do I become? You know, why do we do this? Mm-hmm. But we don't have to keep going back to the well. You know,
right? Exactly.
And I think he was doing it in somewhat of a satirical form, if you will. Mm-hmm. You know, but
it almost feels like the thing where a kid in class says a joke, and it's a really funny joke, and kids want him to keep saying the joke. But the more he says the joke, the more stale it becomes, and then it sort of loses the impact that it did the first time he told it.
Yep.
That's kind of how I feel about how those sex scenes and like a lot of different scenes like that are portrayed in this movie.
Yes. Agree 100%. But when it comes to the writing and it comes to the editing and the pacing of this thing, I thought it was really well done.
Oh yeah, it's super fun movie, and like that really of all the hangups that I have of this movie, that's like the biggest one.
Yeah, I don't want to say hangups because I think that everything that it just honestly it didn't really click with me.
Sure.
You know, and it's nothing against the subject matter, what was going on. And like I said, I really appreciate it. And I think the writing, like it took the next step for me when I thought that on a surface level, this was just going to be crude, you know, which none of his movies are. You know, you just kind of find out what are we talking about here.
Yeah, it's almost like he has a little bit of an element of a Lars von Trier, but he doesn't quite go into that crusty territory that Lars likes to go into.
No, he's fantastic. It's like Willy Wonka, you know, meets the sex shop.
There's a creativeness about it and an imagination that you can see not only visually, but just like the ideas he has with like the humor and how the characters are played and like everything else that goes into it.
Yeah, and this is a big one, I think, with nature versus nurture in terms of how we're imprinted and what's going on versus how we take the world in and are guided by what's innate within us. Mm-hmm. You know, we get to see a lot of that stuff play out as she goes and becomes the woman that she set out to be.
Yeah.
And I really liked once she got back you know, and she gets with Max, and then all of a sudden she finds her other husband, and then she sees, you know, some of what he's up to, you know. Yeah, I mean, I well written, you know, and I liked Emma Stone in this thing. I'm like,
I really like her in this movie. I think she does a really good job of portraying that like slow progression of her going from a literal infant, like the mind of an infant, to someone who's inquisitive, someone who can start to form sentences, someone who can form independent thoughts. And then like as the movie goes along, she starts to piece together what it means to be a person, not just a woman, but a person.
Yeah.
And like have this idea of agency and control and like doing the things that you want to do regardless of what other people are trying to force upon you. So like I like that, and it just, I don't know, it feels like a really good skill of acting to have that portrayal of like going from dumb baby mode to she's playing an intelligent, thoughtful woman who can think for herself.
I'd credit that more to the writing.
Sure.
You know, that's where, and that's where I get a little torn with stuff like that. Like, you know, like
I think they go pretty well hand in hand.
Cranston was on a podcast one time, and Cranston said if you can find a good writer, it's like giddy up. Like you could be an average actor, but if you got good writing, like that can take you to the next step, and vice versa. I mean, you could be an average writer with a good actor, and he can implant some of his own thoughts into it. And that's where with this one, with how heady this one was, I don't think I really gave her maybe the respect that she deserves with it. But I also was just thinking like I don't know if I can only see Emma Stone playing this character.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's where some of the times where you're looking at the best actress, it's you have a hard time fathoming someone else being in that role.
It's almost like it does a really good job with it though in that way, in that to me Emma Stone kind of disappears into it. Like after a certain point, to me it's hard to see Emma Stone. I just see Bella as the character.
I guess that's where I was.
That's
never
where,
really. I don't know.
That's where our roads diverge.
Yeah,
that's where my Paul Walker leaves your Vin Diesel.
Yeah, because I guess it's like, all right, I know where this is going.
Sure.
And we know where she's gonna eventually get to. So you're gonna see that natural progression. So it's always that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's why I viewed it as the writing, because the writing is the one that's taking us there, and I think anyone could have did the same actions that she was doing. So when you're saying like, yeah, I agree, Bella the character was outstanding. I just don't know if Emma Stone to me was like the only one that could be Bella. Sure. Like Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood. Hard to imagine DiCaprio or De Niro or Pacino or whoever being in that role.
Any of the days that you can find.
Yeah. Like, that's where I kind of, those are like when we talk about our Javier Bardem and No Country for Old Men, like when you're looking at those characters, like I am losing myself in this person, but this person's embellished what the character that they are. And I think Bella was just so well written that other people could have done it.
Gotcha.
And that's where I had a little bit harder of a time seeing her win it.
Sure.
You know, and that's my opinion on it, at least.
I love Mark Ruffalo in this movie.
I didn't like him at first, and then he kind of grew on me.
He kind of grew on. Yeah, it's like he's so fucking hammy and over the top and corny.
Oh my god!
It's almost like he's kind of doing a bad job, but he's doing such a good job at being bad, if that makes any modicum of sense.
He's your average white male that thinks he's the best.
He's like obviously supposed to be this dumb, stupid, misogynistic idiot.
Yeah.
That he just plays it so well. It's so goofy, and you don't take him seriously, and you're not supposed to take anybody like that seriously. He is a joke character. His character is a joke. And that's I think like what I like about it the most. Well, and he's nailing it to a T.
I think he served as some sentiment of society. And when you talk about males, there is that set of guys that he embodied.
Like there's an easy angle to see this where like any other person could have played this character and like maybe added some element of like, oh, he's he's a human being. He's a person. He's someone that like I should care about, and like maybe he has some decent qualities. And then Mark Ruffalo comes in and says, "Fuck that! I'm gonna play the biggest pompous asshole you've ever seen, and it's gonna be cartoonish and over the top, but you're going to like it." And I do really like it.
He grew on me by the end of it. At the very beginning, because the way that he came off, I was like, "This guy's a douche." Right. And it was, I have the most money. I'm the best at loving. And I will never have a lover because I've loved too many for anyone to gain my love. And by the end of it, completely broken.
Yeah, because the more independence that Bella finds for herself, the more his life kind of breaks down.
Yeah.
And it just shows the shallow veneer of what he's built his life on.
Yes. And that's that's what I'm saying. This movie, like, it's at the beginning of it, to me, it was like a roller coaster. I'm like, I don't know if this thing's going to have any swoops or anything. And then once you start... really the train starts rolling, it picks up steam pretty well, and there's a lot of transitions with characters.
My favorite Yorgos Lanthimos film, because
really?
I've only seen two, this and Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Oh, I guess that's where we diverge too.
I mean, I didn't hate Killing of a Sacred Deer, but I had some thoughts
this
on
thing's
it.
got a lot more going for it. I mean,
I think so.
Yeah, I still like it more than this, but
deserving of a rewatch, I will admit.
This one's pretty heady, and it's got a lot going for it. The writing's fantastic. There's a lot of themes being brought into it. I see why it got nominated. I was kind of
I do too. It was one of the more talked about movies too, which I found interesting.
Yeah,
because I like that movies like this are getting attention. I like that the weird, obscure, kind of like indie feeling films are getting a little bit more in the zeitgeist, and people are willing to go see something that's out there. Like, this movie had a budget of $35 million, made $108 million.
Oh, wow.
Which, that's no small feat at all.
No.
But for a film like this, where it's almost completely inaccessible to general audiences, that's pretty great.
Yeah,
I wish Beau is Afraid made those numbers.
I know. That'll go down as a film that I just unfairly castrated.
That film is it's got a cult following. We're a part of it.
Yes, which is fantastic.
We're the Beau truthers,
and we'll be able to say we're on that train when it took off.
We have it on record, bitches.
Yeah, which is so.
Get on our monster dick.
I mean, I'm glad. I'm trying not to think about what part that was in.
Don't think about it too hard.
Yeah. No, that is fantastic. I'm really curious as to what demographic this hit. That's what I'd be most curious about. Is like if they did a survey on it, who are we talking to? Because I really have a hard time seeing any one demographic being drawn into this.
59 to 72.
Oh my god, yeah. Anyone that wanted to see Emma Stone nude,
mostly male, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a lot of the clientele that she had in the movie. Was that age range? Just a bunch of naked old dudes, their balls hanging out.
Preston is we're staying up. I'm waiting for him to fall asleep. I'm like, I'm gonna throw this movie on as soon as he falls asleep because I made the mistake with the Island of Dr. Moreau, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna get in this thing. And I think halfway through it, I kept like looking over to make sure he was never waking up. And I was like, this thing is about as close to NC-17 I think that you can get, and that's why it also perplexes me that it's had so much success because I don't think anyone really talks about it in that type of light.
Right.
But it's also not, in terms of what she's doing with the sexual acts, it's not gratuitous to be gratuitous.
There's almost like a comedic element to it.
Yes.
A lot of times.
Yeah. And I think, I think he's poking fun and there's some satire in there.
For sure. 100%. So you picked it. So I rate it, right? This one, I think I gave an 8 out of 10.
Oh,
very solid, very enjoyable. Really liked the out there weirdness of it. I feel very similar feelings about this movie that I do with Beau is Afraid. The biggest thing that this movie has going against it is some of the repetitiveness of the sex scenes and like some of the scenes where it's driving the same point across.
Yeah, right in the beginning on the cruise ship and just her blowing anyone that she walks by.
Like you said, I get it. I get what it's going for. I don't need to see it 48 more times.
Right. Yeah, no, if this thing, like I said, 15 to 20 minutes got trimmed out of this, I think that this would have been a really clean, concise movie. But with that being said, I'm an 8 out of 10. I think I had it as a 7, but talking about it and thinking about it, there is a lot going for this that is merited. I think this is a good movie that if you saw this with friends, that you could probably have discussions about it, a little bit more heady discussions.
Yeah.
Than just your average. Did you see your tits? But like we said, I mean, that 15 to 20 minutes of fat is really fatty. It just kind of makes it run a little bit more dry for me. And I probably have some jadedness that Emma Stone won Best Actress over Lily or Sandra Hüller. So
understandable.
Yeah.
So I think it's my turn. We have 2 films left.
Yeah.
So I get to
I'm
pick.
interested because now you get to choose what's the last one's going to be.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of have a feeling what one you're going to choose for me to read off, but we'll find out.
So the next film that I want to discuss is Past Lives.
I knew it.
Yep.
I knew it.
Yep.
You wanted to save it.
Yep. We're saving Zone of Interest for you, baby boy.
Yep.
So let me look up some stuff about this film, this wonderful, lovely film. So Past Lives is a romantic drama film directed and written by Celine Song, and it stars Greta Lee as Nora Moon and Tou as Hai Sung, and I hope I pronounced that okay. But it's essentially about these 2 childhood friends who are very close, and then the girl and her family decide to move to America.
Canada and then America. I think they go to Toronto and then New York.
The North American region.
Yeah.
And they immigrate. And the young boy, they have to say goodbye to each other. But obviously there's some lasting feelings there. There's some level of connection that they have with each other that they felt that they need to address or in some way at least touch on. So then they start Skyping each other, her being from New York and then him still being from South Korea, I think, right?
Seoul.
Yes. Yep. Seoul, South Korea. Yep. So they communicate with each other, they keep in touch, and then there's a long period of time where they decide to not communicate. And then one summer, Hai Sung decides to vacation in New York, and he goes and sees her.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the movie. I mean, in terms of like events and the different highs and lows of this, there's not much else to it. That being said, this is a film that I really enjoy on a personal level. I think that this is a film that really resonates with me in that there's a lot of relatability to either character. Someone who is wanting to have that connection and to keep that connection, but you just can't because of some extenuating circumstances or just location based or whatever. And then someone else who is kind of moved on with it, but oftentimes thinks about what could have been, and checks back in with that other person and realizes that like, oh, there still could be a connection, but I've gone almost too far with certain things in my life that I'm still happy with. But at the same time, it brings me a bit of sadness to think that things could have maybe been different. Yeah. So there's a lot about this film just on a technical level that I love, but on a personal level with the writing and the characters and how they relate to each other, this film really did resonate with me. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Same. I thought this
and that's the discussion. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Past Lives. Let's get into the ratings.
Zone of Interest. I think you got that next up.
Yeah. This is it's a really beautiful way to look at relationships.
Absolutely.
There's some sort of melancholy way of seeing, when you lose touch with someone, lose a connection, right? At least with where we're at on the western side of the world, of it being kind of wasted, maybe gone. It's just out of touch. We're out of time, and that Eastern notion that they present with the Inyan, right, of our past lives and that connection that if we find someone that we've been with 8,000 years or we've met 8,000 different times or, however it goes, that we were in these lives meant to be together, and as we continue, that's our destiny, and the providence of fate is, I think how they described Inyan.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very, it's sad, but it's also a really elegant. I mean, I keep saying beautiful, but it's a really peaceful way to look at lost connections.
It's very human.
Yes,
This is a movie that does not feel cynical about it. It doesn't feel like it's saying that love or keeping in touch with someone or wanting to have those relationships is a bad thing.
Right.
It's just very specific to these two people, but for some reason it resonates with so many in that it touches on different aspects that you are probably familiar with, having these life experiences with not only just like relationships, but also maybe just friendships or like people that you want to keep up, like people in general, right? People that you have a connection to, people you care about, people that like, it's one of those movies that makes you think about the friends or the people you might have lost touch with.
Yes.
It's one of those things where like, it's touching on so much without trying too hard to do so and without being ham-fisted about it.
It's not Hallmarky whatsoever.
No, it doesn't feel Hallmarky.
This is one of the best endings I've seen in a movie in a while.
I love the ending of this.
Yes.
Should we get into spoilers?
We can.
All right, let's get into spoilers for Past Lives.
That dude was a simp. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that not? No. I felt so bad for that guy.
I mean, yes, you do feel bad for him in the sense that, like, you can tell that he's trying to be okay with it when he fully isn't.
Oh, yeah, but
because he loves her and he loves everything about her and, like, wants her to be happy. And he doesn't want to be that guy to say who she can and can't see, who she can and can't, like, spend time with. But at the same time, you can easily tell, and this is also just kudos to the guy playing him, John.
It's clicks and pops.
John
That's all I
Magaro.
hear is clicks and pops. It's from Overlord. He's talking to this kid from France.
Okay.
The kid's talking to him in French. Sorry, I say it to Jasmine all the time. She calls it pops and rocks. But he's talking to, like, as soon as the guy popped up, I was like, oh, it's clicks and pops. Because the kid's talking to him in French.
Okay.
He's like, I don't understand. It's all clicks and pops, kid. Anyways,
Gotcha.
That's who played the guy.
Okay.
I was happy. I don't know why, but I was like, oh,
a little
nice.
bit more insight into this particular actor. But no, like he's playing it so well where like you can tell that
dude, he's miserable.
There's so much that he's struggling with in this specific situation of feeling inadequate, feeling like he's not being enough in a situation where he has ostensibly won. Like he's in the situation where like that is his girlfriend, he's got her, and she's not wife. Yeah, exactly. And she's not going anywhere. Whereas, like, this connection that they have with each other is so much of something that he's unfamiliar with and can't partake just on a language basis that he just feels so shoved out.
I think, I think that when this guy comes back in, there's obviously that sense of insecurity, but I also think he looks at it and he knows that she doesn't look at him the way that she looks at and what's his name?
Haesung.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think he recognizes that. And he has, at the beginning of the film, they go through and there's this couple that's observing the two and they're trying to guess who these three people are. And they're just going off body language alone.
That's a great opening, by the way. Because I kept thinking about it throughout the movie. It's like, eventually this movie is going to get to this scene.
Yeah.
When is that guy? Like, it just stayed in the back of my mind while it also enthralled me in everything else happening.
Yeah, I mean,
I love it when movies do that.
They open up with they're just going off of what they're seeing. So they're kind of giving us as an indication of the audience of, this is where it's leading to, I would say. But you also don't know because, I mean, the movie, like, if an American film, I mean, she would run out to him in the rain and crying and say, I love you, I will go with you anywhere. You know, but they don't portray it that way. They're the same. They're in the same boat we are. We don't know who these people are.
Because, like, oftentimes life does not imitate movies. Movies imitate life to the best that they can sometimes, but a lot of the times for narrative purposes or for striking a right sort of...
You mean making money?
Chord, sure, making money. In order to do that, they have to sacrifice a level of realism and reality to do so.
And this one doesn't.
It shows you the reality, and it's arguably the more effective for it.
Yeah, I hate saying something's beautiful, One, I think it's just lazy, but this is a very beautiful way of looking at relationships and time passing and being out of connection with someone while still being connected and still not sacrificing what a typical movie would be for what would happen in real life.
I really think Greta Lee, because she wasn't nominated for Best Actress, wasn't she?
Yeah, no, she wasn't.
I thought
she was awesome.
She should have gotten it. Like every time she looked over at him, whenever, like anytime she just gave an expression on screen, I 100% believe that she was putting in every single bit of effort to portray the character that way.
Dude, it
felt so believable.
Both of them did.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime that they were together, you really felt like it was kind of two old souls meeting. Like,
Absolutely.
I mean, the score in this thing, really, it's not sweeping, but they definitely like kind of aid you along this like, whimsical journey, and it really doesn't provide any sort of indication on what's going to happen. But the way that the two characters interact, it leaves you wondering how will this go, and one of the best conversations in the whole film is when he's waiting for his Uber. I think they start talking about, or maybe it was in the bar. I think it was when they were waiting for the Uber. I wonder what our past lives were. I wonder maybe I was, I was a drug dealer and you were my evil mistress or something like that. Like they kind of go through like all these different, like, back, 6,000 years ago. And I think that was at the bar. And then while they're waiting for the Uber, they start, we still have some inyan going. So maybe in our future lives, this will happen. And I think that they both like had that realization of like, well, maybe that's what we have to look forward to. But at the same token, I'd rather be here now with you, and the thing ends, when she goes and cries in that dude's arms, I was like, oh geez, this is so hard to soak all of this in.
But I loved it so much, though. I think
It's
it was
great.
the perfect way to end it, and I think that was the most effective way they could have done it.
I agree. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have, but I'm like, there's a lot of emotions. Like it's like, oh my god, like it's
a lot of emotions with just like people glancing at each other and people like expressing just physically how they're feeling towards this other person. Like obviously there's a lot of dialogue and there's a lot being actually said to these people. But
that's the most genuine way of seeing if two people are just the way that someone smiles at someone.
Exactly.
Or brushes or holds their hand or touches them or, and that's why, like, not for me, but sometimes when I get around people and I relationships, and just seeing other people, like, it's like, oh, okay, like it's different, but anytime that you can see that smirk, the smile, the gentle hand touch, that hug, that it's all right, the very nuanced effects of your body relating to someone else, you get a really good sense of how comfortable someone is around someone else.
I love the scene. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
I really love the scene where they're both, so like her and the husband are laying in bed and they're sort of talking to each other about the possibilities of what could have been if she had met someone else at the like writer's house that they shared.
Yeah.
And her kind of like brushing it aside is like something to like not even try to think about too much because he's already there. He's already in this position of being with her.
Yeah.
But then you can tell that the insecurity is creeping up and that the level of how much he's thought about this is bubbling to the surface when he says, you dream in another language. Like that line hits you so hard because like not only does this dude just think about it in the moments that he's with her, but he just thinks about it in general all the time.
Yeah.
So that scene just, I don't know, it's really resonative. And
he goes through the whole thought process of, I got lucky. We just happened to luck into this. Do you really love me? What he's kind of getting at is we're together, but are we really connected?
Well, like there's also the idea of like there wasn't that much in the way of romanticism of them getting together versus her connection with Hai Sung.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like it doesn't have, like you could go to Paris, you could go to Germany, you could go see the Swedish Alps with someone. It doesn't mean you're connected. You could share a shit ton of moments with someone, but that doesn't mean that you have general affection for them or that you're happy that you're sharing that moment with them. And that's what he ultimately starts going through is, did I just stumble into this and we're married and now we're here? Like and like you said, you're dreaming in another language. I got to imagine that he just feels that she is thinking constantly about Hai Sung and that's where her soulmate's at, her connected person's at, and that for them it's really just moments in time that they're spanning together, not truly sharing anything. And that's why I really felt bad for that dude the whole when. And the crazy thing is, Hae-sung doesn't do anything to make you feel that way. It's literally just this guy who's sitting there, but everything that's been shown to us, they didn't have the greatest oh yeah, they did this, they did that. They had the one night under the kind of cool lights, and they were sharing drinks, and she tells them what Inyeon is, and that's about it. That's the only time that we really get to see them together, kind of sharing some a moment together. And all the stuff with Ha-sung is conversations and just the way that they talk, and they want to know
higher concepts and the ideas of what is connection, what is fate, just the different spanning of time and the missed opportunities that they could or couldn't have had with each other.
Yes. And with her husband, it's just kind of we have to go to this, we have to go to your book, right? Don't forget that. And I think that's ultimately, that's why I really felt bad for him. There is some insecurity there, but he's also looking back and being I don't have that with her that he has, and he can see it.
Yeah,
and they're at the bar, and she completely turns her back to him to talk to Ha-sung. Right, that's a subconscious move that you're closing someone off.
Yeah,
so she literally just is I'm done with you. I'm going to talk to him. When she's married, it could have been just or
they could have sat in a booth where
they're all facing each other.
They're a little bit more evenness in terms of who's looking at who.
And it's funny too, because when they go to the restaurant and I think they get the pasta, Ha-sung and her are sitting next to each other, touching shoulders, and he's sitting across. Which I thought was another. A lot of the time when they're sharing space, you can just see how close they are.
Yeah,
and that's why I felt bad for that guy, and that's why at the very end, it's a great way of ending the thing. I just really felt bad for him because how would you like it? Megan comes up, she starts bawling in her arms because someone else is out of her life, and she's like, it's gone. It will never happen. It's man, if that happened with me and Jasmine, I'd probably be crying with her.
Yeah, if I left in the Uber and you started crying towards her.
Yeah, yeah. There goes Kyle.
I had such a connection.
That's where I'm I just felt so oh my God, it's very raw.
It's raw because it's real. It feels like it's real because it doesn't touch on those narrative tropes that a lot of movies do. Yes. And it stays so grounded, and the performances stay so believable that you're just able to get behind pretty much everything happening in this movie.
And it goes by quick too. Not quick, but it's paced well. For a movie that just looks at two people that never get to share the same screen together for 2 hours, it moves well.
We should wrap this up.
Yes.
Is there anything else we want to say about Past Lives?
No, we're good. We're good.
This might be going over the 3-hour mark.
Yeah, we got some time.
That's all right. We got one more film, but did you want to give this a rating?
Yes, I have this as a 9 out of 10. Well written. I really liked Inyeon. The thought of Inyeon, and just how raw and real this is, and and I'll keep saying it, but it's a beautiful way just to look at kindred spirits, relationships, and maybe disconnections occurring, but it doesn't mean that our fates are sealed away from each other. And it's a nice way to kind of look at that at this level.
I agree 100%. This is also a very high 9 out of 10 for me.
Nice.
I sometimes just think about this film in general because of the different resonating themes and the dialogues and the ideas that it's bringing forward. Just beautifully crafted, very elegantly paced. I love the acting and the portrayals in this movie, and it's one that feels like one of the most grounded films I think I've seen in a while. It is far and away one of the most believable movies in terms of all those different elements going into it.
Yes.
So with that being said, we've got one more movie to discuss.
Right. No, we do. Yes, we do.
Ball's in your court for the final time.
Yeah, I should have did this one earlier, and I was gonna do Past Lives.
Beat you to it, bitch.
Yeah. All right. Last movie that we're gonna talk about, The Zone of Interest.
Get in the zone, auto zone.
Yeah, that's how they treat some of this stuff. Directed by Jonathan Glazer. Written by Jonathan Glazer and one other person. Starring Christian Friedel as Rudolph Haas and Sandra Hüller as Hedwig Haas.
Return of the Sandra.
Yes, and it's so funny because I didn't realize it was her until we were watching the Oscars Sunday, and I'm like, is that her? Like, that can't be, And sure enough, Issa Rae and Sandra Hüller are both in 2 nominated movies. What this is, it's a look at Rudolf Haas, who is a manager, a director of Auschwitz, and running Auschwitz in terms of getting bodies in and out. And they have a house right on the edge of the camp, right? Like it's
next to it. It's literally right up. Like they could
walk,
not be any closer without being inside.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure they could touch the walls. And essentially, what it is just kind of a living in the shoes of these people that are running Auschwitz and seeing how. I would say like a fly on the wall, right? Of just living the day-to-day life of these people and how they're just unaffected by what's going on next to them. And, I know you. We're gonna talk about it, and I know
we're gonna talk about it.
Yeah, I think you've been wanting to talk about this one as soon as we saw it. And I'll let you take it away with some of your thoughts on it.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I must tell about the theater experience because. Unfortunately, because like Mac and I saw this movie together with a few of my friends, and unfortunately, with us being kind of a group, the theater was kind of small, and the only available seats that were still together were in the very front row,
which I was shocked by.
I was hoping it was going to be one of those things where the seats were far enough back to where it wouldn't look janky. It looked kind of janky, so that was something to try to get past, and also. Just someone came in reeking of marijuana. I don't know if you smelled it, but I smelled it as soon as like the movie started. It's some dude is reefing in the parking lot before he came to watch this Holocaust
this
movie.
This is gonna be great to get high and watch the Holocaust.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna watch this day in the life stoned, brother. 1944.
Must have read the wrong synopsis.
Yeah.
Probably was thinking he's seeing Poor Things.
Oh, I thought this was the stone of interest. Yeah. Oh, like with weed. So that in of itself was like kind of frustrating, right? That being said, I really do love this movie.
Yeah.
It's one of those where like I'm gonna be a fucking hipster douchebag and
I don't know if
pull out the fact that I love the fact that this movie is so disconnected from any sort of character or any sort of like central figure going on. I mean, the closest you get is Rudolph, but at that same level, we're not supposed to sympathize with him because he's a literal Nazi.
Right.
We're just supposed to take in all the sensory experiences going on that's portrayed in this film, mostly with the sounds, and that's why I wanted to see this in a theater in the first place, is to get all the different sounds.
Yeah, the sound in this thing is fantastic.
As well as I could. It is very effectively well made. And not only that, but I just love the way it's framed. I love the way that it's shot. Just the different editing choices going on, especially towards the end, to me, were really fantastic. And the different periods of ambient noise and music coming in and out, where it's like just very droning sounds that kind of like unsettle you. That first like 4 minutes or so where it's just black screen and the music's kicking in, I really dug, and I knew I was going to enjoy this movie. But yeah, needless to say, there's a lot about this film that I enjoy, and I'm really curious as to your
this
thoughts.
Thing is like a dull fest. That's where we have differences when we view movies. I tell everyone when they ask, I say Kyle's a little bit more artsy with films, in terms that you look at films or they don't just have to have that like a storyline and characters and be poppy, like and this is one of those films where I would say it's the exact opposite of all that.
This is probably the most experimental movies of
Dude,
all of them in terms of like just narrative format.
We'll do Tree of Life. We'll do Tree of Life one day so I can get your thoughts on
I'm
that.
excited to do Tree of Life.
Yeah, I know you are.
Malik is one that I've not dived into yet.
Yeah, that's great.
But no, I'm curious.
No, I liked the premise that they took. It's a different perspective on the Holocaust. We get to see this family operate, and it's really just like a normal family going through. And it, to me, I think the way I described it when we saw it in theaters was, it would be like if I watched a manager at an auto parts plant just go through and live the day to day, and just hearing the noises of the industrial noises going on with the parts being made, and then the steam hissing, and then all the chatter going on in the background because all the workers are talking, but there's no distinct conversation going on. It's a very there's a certain vibe, and I guess you use ambiance that you said that's going on with it, and Stalker's another one that I think about with this.
Very comparable.
I like Stalker because of the and I say subject matter, but a lot of the premise of what was going on with Stalker, there was some sort of question there.
There's a lot of philosophical nuance with Stalker.
Whereas this one, it's more of just it's almost like we're just setting up a camera and we're just gonna watch.
It's a very objective view of what's being portrayed.
Yes.
But it's meant to sort of instill those unsettling feelings of not only what's going on, but the implication of how these characters are treating it. Whereas like they're just going about their day-to-day lives when people are literally being mass murdered next door. Right near their heads.
So that's what I'm saying. And that's why I equated it. Not necessarily to the auto plant, but it's like we get to see an objective view of what's going on, right? And I don't know if I have those feelings already. I kind of have a sense of how it went,
Sure.
And it's like it's just more of the same. That's why Killers of the Flower Moon, like we talk about redundancy going on. This was like another one of those redundancies,
Sure.
Where we get to see it's the same kind of not necessarily imagery going on, but just how these people are just operating in their lives, and it's just it's whatever to them, but they're just doing their jobs.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why it just, really stale and boring to me. I did not get into it whatsoever.
I was super interested in it because I feel like, for me personally, I think I was able to immerse myself within the environment well enough to try to look for and listen for all these different things happening. Because not only is it... Go ahead.
No, you can...
It's, to me, not only one of those movies that... it allows for you to like kind of listen for certain things happening, but also it gives you the idea of like, it's almost kind of like Skinamarink in this sense where you can either look for something on screen and sort of almost convince your brain that something is or isn't happening. And I don't know, I really like that because I like it when a movie sort of plays around with the idea of what experiencing a movie should be like. And I think that that's a lot of why I really dig this movie, is because the uniqueness of the experience is unlike anything I think I've seen in a lot of other films, where like you get Holocaust movies and, like you said, you're going into it, what you're going to get, right? A lot of misery, a lot of different portrayals of cruelty, all these horrific things going on that happen in real life. But then it sort of takes that concept and puts it in a different lens of, well, we're not seeing the atrocities, but we're knowing that they're happening and we're hearing it, but it's through the lens of this family who could not give two shits about what's going on, right? They're more concerned about their day-to-day and like what they're going to have for dinner, and like the kid making out with the other girl on the other side while like all these different things are happening. And it's like, I don't know, it's kind of the idea of like, obviously it's touching on people ignoring atrocities that are happening right next door to them, right? It's just touching on that idea, but I still like the idea that it's doing that with this creative lens. It's one of those things where, to me, someone could tell me that this movie is style over substance, where I would tell them that the style is the substance. The style is the point of the movie, and what you're supposed to get out of it is what you're supposed to hear and see.
I agree with you on that. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. I think the movie hit what it was going for. 100%. It's just not for me. And it's not necessarily the subject matter. Like I said, if we were to take this thing and put it at a car plant or at a brothel or somewhere seedy, like if you wanted to go into New York and just follow down the alleys, I mean, you could have a great visual and sounds there, but 90 minutes of just hearing stuff and viewing it and having a different lens on what's going on, it doesn't interest me.
For
Zone
sure.
of disinterest.
Oh, well, okay. No, that was good. That's 10 points right there. No, I get it. I understand, because I could feel totally the same way about this movie, because there are films that come out where I do think that they hit their intention of what they wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And I could totally not be behind it because I don't connect with it. I don't resonate with it. Nothing in it does anything for me on a narrative level or otherwise, getting me involved with the film itself.
Right.
This very much is the opposite of that, where I think it absolutely does what it intended to do, and I'm also into it because it's different, because it's one of those things where, like, I've never seen a movie like it. I love the way that it's framed. I love the spaces that it creates and the ideas that it brings forward with just the editing alone. When it cuts to, I mean, I guess, is this really a spoiler? Can you even spoil this movie? Like towards the end when it cuts to something else? Yeah,
I would say that'd be spoiling it. Because I didn't know what was going on when that happened.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say when it cuts to something else.
Yeah.
Completely different from what we've seen before in the movie. That really affected me. Not only with the whiplash tonally of what was going on, but also just the ideas that it was bringing forward of like, oh, this is a monumental thing that's being treated so mundanely throughout most of the film.
Yeah.
And just like the things with like the river and like the wife yelling at the help and Rudolph with like the different, the women he's running around with and everything. Like, not to get like too much into spoilery territory, but to me there was enough to keep me interested in more than just the surface level.
Sure.
So that's just kind of where I'm at. I think that's all I can really say about it.
You can like the film. I don't have to like it. This thing was like
absolutely.
I've seen a couple films. Like, I mean, Malik's going to be one. I mean, if you like this, that's why I'm curious, because you're probably going to have a whole different experience with Malik than I did.
I guess we'll see.
I don't vibe with Malik much at all, except Thin Red Line. But that's because there's a little bit more going on. There's, when you're taking in some of the visuals and the sounds, and you're diving a little bit more into the film than where I dive into. Mm-hmm. But also, I guess that's where it's a different belief on what the film should be. Or I shouldn't say what film should be. What I would typically check out.
What you want out of a movie.
Yeah,
and this is not necessarily something you want out of a film.
It's hard to say. I mean, that's the beauty of film, though, because like I said, this is a lot like Stalker to me, and I like Stalker quite a bit. You know, whereas this one was just kind of here nor there, and I guess it's just nothing that I'm really interested. Like I said, I was interested in or cared to check out. It was like the sound and the technical aspects of this stuff is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of what this guy's got going on with the sound and the cinematography and some of the scenes that we cut to and go on with keep you engaged. But I don't have much more to say outside of it.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for letting me drag you to go see it in theaters.
Yeah. Well, no, I told you I was going through IMDb, and I like the day before you invited me to go, I added this to my watch list.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you read the synopsis, and that's what I'm saying, sometimes you don't know what you're going to get into with the film, and I had no idea. And then all of a sudden I started going on, and I was just like,
yeah. And then you were like, hey, can the guy behind me get me some weed?
I didn't smell him.
I'm so shocked you didn't smell him.
No, the experience was fine with me. I mean, I had to sit up that close when I saw Top Gun Maverick. Like, that's how close I was sitting when
I think I would vomit if that happened to me.
There you go. Now you know why. But now that's why I said it was like on a roller coaster, because I was in the Phoenix. We were in the second row, so we had just a little bit more. But those chairs are like moving and they're vibrating, and the sound is insane. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Anyways,
I give
this thing.
I
don't even know
think.
if I rated this.
Oh, I definitely rated it. This is a 9 out of 10 for me, baby.
Oh, yeah.
More like zone of Pinterest. Pin it up on the top board right there. Get it? That was stinker number 4. Yeah.
You're stealing my jokes now.
I don't know if you want me to steal that joke.
I do like the cover art for this too.
The cover art's banging.
Yeah.
The poster game for this movie is strong.
Yeah.
No, it's one of those unique experience movies where I've never really experienced anything like it. It's one of those that I'm glad I watched it in theaters despite somewhat of a poor experience. I was able to get all the sound, get all the imagery, get all of what I wanted to get out of this movie from a unique perspective.
Good. Yeah, I got this as a 6 out of 10. Yeah. Like I said, it not enough going for me in terms of I like I said, the technical aspects of it were great, but story and what I was viewing and being the fly on the wall aspect with it, I don't know. It just reminded me so much of Malick, and I'm not a Malick guy.
Should we get into our rankings to wrap this up?
Yes.
Because we should wrap it up because we are over the 3-hour mark. This will be the longest single episode.
God. Well, yeah, the movies just said 5 to 10 minutes, and we definitely didn't do 9 to 10 minutes.
We did not do that, but that's okay. You get a beefier discussion for each movie, I guess.
Yeah. Do you want me to go first?
Well, actually, I'm kind of changing something.
Zone of Interest just got bumped to 1.
Not exactly, but okay. All right, I'm good now. So, yeah, I guess if you want to go first.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 10 to 1.
Good.
All right. So number 10, Maestro. Number 9, Zone of Interest. Number 8, Poor Things. Number 7, Killers of the Flower Moon. Number 6, you know what? Anatomy of a Fall. Number 5, Barbie. Number 4, Past Lives. Number 3, Oppenheimer. Number 2, American Fiction. And number 1, Holdovers.
American Fiction's that high.
I'm telling you, man. And I think, I don't know. I was telling, just from going through Muskegon in high school and being part of that, that culture for 4 years, I think a little bit more of it resonated with me with what was going on in the film.
Sure.
And that's where, some of my
too damn white is what Mac is saying.
Nah, I mean, there's a realistic aspect because I have one of our friends. I mean, he's a black male, gay black male, and he's already kind of already on the outskirts in terms of demographic. He talks about when you walk into a room with a bunch of white people. I mean, it's really it's different, and it's
absolutely
a whole different perspective than I could ever. And I was close enough at Muskegon to kind of gain some interest on that. But I think some of the things that happen in American Fiction definitely hits a little bit closer to home with me, or in terms of understanding than I think, not having that background.
Yeah.
So.
No, I totally get it.
Yeah.
I think that was the only thing I wanted to comment with your ranking. Otherwise, I understand it all. So I guess I'll go next.
Yes.
I'll go 10 to 1 also.
Yep.
Number 10, I have Maestro.
Oh,
no surprise.
Yep.
Number 9, American Fiction.
Yep.
Number 8, Barbie.
Ooh.
And I will just say this, from 8 on up, at least an 8 out of 10 for all these movies.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
So that kind of gives you an idea of the quality of the films. Number 7, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yep.
Number 6, Poor Things. Number 5, Oppenheimer. Number 4, The Zone of Interest. Number 3, and this is where it gets interesting, Anatomy of a Fall.
Yep.
Number 2, Past Lives. Yep. And number 1, The Holdovers.
Yep.
So before we talked about Past Lives, I had Past Lives at number 3.
Yeah.
And Anatomy of a Fall at number 2. And then thinking about it more, I had to switch them.
Yeah.
I had to switch them just because Past Lives is so resonating with me on a personal level.
My fear is that Past Lives is going to end up being kind of Drive My Car.
Sure.
But,
I connected way more with Past Lives than Drive My Car.
I did too. I just bumped Past Lives up from 6 to 4.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I kept wanting to put it higher, and I'm I just don't know where it's going to sit with me at. I really just liked Inyan, and like I said, it's probably the best ending out of any of the movies that in there.
I don't disagree with you at all.
And normally a good movie has a good ending. So
I like how a lot of our placements are in a lot of different spots, but our bookends are exactly the same.
yeah, that's what Zone of Interest beat Maestro out. I think I got a higher rating for Maestro than Zone of Interest, but Zone of Interest I'll probably think about before I think about Maestro.
Yep, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Maestro, number 10. Holdovers, number 1. Neon Crew, seal of approval.
Yes.
You heard it from us.
There it goes.
All right. We got to wrap this bitch up.
Let's do it.
So you recommended a film for episode 68. I'm going to pull up my watch list to find out what that film was because I kind of forgot the title. I know
Strange
it's from
Days.
Catherine Bigelow. Strange Days from Catherine Bigelow. So that will be the movie we discuss next episode. Is there any you want to pair it with that you have your heart set on?
Well, we might have to do Dune 2.
I'm kind of thinking Dune 2 as well.
Yeah, I'll try to get to see that in theaters. I'll drag
It'll be
Jasmine
there
to it.
for a while.
I gotta imagine so, and I'm hearing great things. So
You got a bit of time.
yes.
So if you guys, I'm going to do this quick. If you guys don't want to be spoiled for episode 68 of the Neon Crew podcast, be sure to check out Strange Days and Dune Part 2. Thank you guys so much for listening. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to rate us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Be sure to cop some Etsy merch from our Etsy page. You can get a crew neck. It's awesome. It fits well. I'm wearing it right fucking now.
It is.
That's verification for you. Shout out to Gideon for doing our music, and shout out to Lauren for doing our logo design. You can find their pages in the description below. Check out our social medias on YouTube community and Facebook as well. Mac, what do we say to wrap this long-winded episode?
WWTHD.
Bye, everyone.